Mantic Universe Podcast. So many universes, so little time.
Hello, dear listener. You are listening to the Mantic Universe Podcast. My name is Chris, and as ever, I'm joined by my good friend Clem.
Hi, everybody.
And my good friend Gerry. Gerry, how are you, dear sir?
I'm full of the joys of spring.
In the middle of winter. Perfect. Absolutely. It's summer somewhere in a different hemisphere, but still.
Yeah,
cool. I never do, buddy. Cool. So we're back for another MUP Monthly, dear listener. So this is where we really go into detail on all things MUP and also Laserdisc, whether you like it or not. So let me go through the menu, dear listener. This month is going to be a little bit of a flex because our topic of the month is talking about Kings of War 4th edition. So it's all going to be a little tiny bit mixed, but don't worry, dear listener, it'll be still delivered with the same level of high quality and professionalism that you know and also love. Super. So, welcoming on the menu, that's what we're doing now, dear listener. And our introductions. We're then going to talk about our Warpath Firefight and Dead Zone latest news. I have at least one sentence I can say about that. Spoiler alert. We have our Panathor Kings of War, which is probably a good time to talk about 4th edition. We're going to talk Epic Warpath and Panelore. No, we're not, because yes, we sort of did it last month, but we'll glaze over that for now, dear listener. And we're going to go to listener questions. There we go. And as I said, our topic of the month is basically rolled into talking about Kings of War 4th edition. There was about 6 mistakes I made there, guys, but I think I got away with it. What do you think?
Seamless. Stuck together with the finest DJ glue.
Yeah, it's on brand. Like you have to announce from the get-go, this is what you're going to get in terms of quality. It's...
Great point.
That's what
really
we do.
Set out our expectations. Disappoint early and often. That's my, just ask my wife. That's my credo.
Aim low, achieve your goals.
I'm still failing. I am aiming very low. Great. So, guys, 4th edition's dropped. It's mid-January, just to put it in context, dear listener, for when we're recording. How are we all feeling?
I mean, it's winter, it's Berlin, so, it's grey and depressing. 4th edition is not as depressing, so I guess that's a good part. Yeah. How about you?
I'm relatively keen and plucky for the fray, it has to be said, in comparison. Maybe it's because I'm not in Berlin, I don't know. I might go back and rewatch Suspiria, just to bring me down to Clem's level, though.
Yeah, you're welcome to come visit and see how dark and gloomy it is,
Everybody needs a Berlin period. We learned that from Bowie.
Yeah, absolutely right. Super. Sadly, we don't have the talent of Bowie, but still, absolutely. Yeah, no, Berlin's an amazing city, but yeah, in the winter, it's because it's quite far north. It's just the days are so short, and you do have days where you think, did I actually see the sun today? And you didn't really because it was so grey, and then 6 hours.
You meant weeks, right?
So anyway, we are sponsored by the Berlin Tourist Board, as ever. Perfect. Fantastic, guys. So, okay, let's call that the intro.
And now it's time for the Mantic News.
So, guys, we're going to talk about Mantic News. So obviously there's some pretty big news, but I think, and I don't understand this, so I'm going to need you guys to explain this to me as ever. There's going to be some changes to the Mantic digital services which will affect us. What's happening, and what does it mean for me?
Well, from what I understand, Jerry, you can correct me if I'm wrong. They are merging the Vault and the Companion subscriptions and moving it to 3 tiers. Basically, a basic version where you play only one game and just want a companion for this game, which will be the entry level and cheapest subscription. Then there's an intermediary level, I don't even remember. And then there's the level that I would be interested in because that matches what I'm doing at the moment, which is, I think, called the Fanatics. Yeah. And you have a full companion and the STLs from the Vault. You also get voting on specific polls to give directions on what you want from the Vault, or maybe the name will change as well, but let's say the Vault in the upcoming months. And that's about it from what I understand of the content changes. Is that right, Jerry?
Well, there's a couple of other bits. So, yes, the companion membership is your basic. You just play Epic Warpath, and you just need to make army lists for that game. You could do it for free, but then you've got limited amount of army lists you can create and save. And if you pay for the membership, then you can do unlimited lists. The medium one is the Club Mantic membership. That is all of the game systems with unlimited army list building, plus a 10% digital store discount, and then also a choice of a free resin model once per year. And then the Fanatic membership is everything Clem said, plus a 15% digital store discount and 2 exclusive models per year, plus all of the companion army building in there as well. So there's a couple of nice things with the exclusive resin models, and then a permanent discount for the new digital shop. And then you also get whatever the Vault is as well.
When you say resin models, it's funny because I thought it was the what they already do now, like the reward for being a member throughout the year, and it's not an actual physical item, right? Like it's the STL for.
It doesn't say STL. It specifically says resin reward models. So
that's interesting. Yeah, I kind of didn't dismiss it, but like I understood it as, oh yeah, that's what we have at the moment. But maybe you're right, and actually it will be an actual physical item, like a print. Because I think another big news is also the print on demand that they've announced seems to be about to be up and running.
Because that middle tier is specifically for people who don't 3D print, like myself, or don't have access to a 3D printer, I think the indication of that is there's no point in giving an STL file to those people because they can't print out anyway. So that's why I think they are actually physical exclusive models. But yeah, this will all be pushing in from February, and the Kings of War Champions, Zakai, possibly not how that's pronounced, company box, the Salamander box, is going to be the first of the new digital store products and the first of the print on demand. So we're going to see a whole host of things in there.
So when you say digital store, do you think the print on demand is part of the digital store as well?
Well, at the moment, the print on demand is that Salamander's box, let's put it like that, is listed as a web store exclusive just on the regular Mantic web store. So I think the print on demand stuff will probably live in there. So anything that's currently a Mantic web store exclusive, so things like the Halfling Edge Grenadiers, if you want them, you have to get them via Mantic's web store and their resin. I think things like that will move to print on demand, possibly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I know that the whole idea is to really focus into the digital storefront as being something new and unique for Mantic, because I don't think there's any other main wargaming companies out there doing this. Certainly not to this extent anyway, which is one of the reasons why they wanted to look at everything. So if people didn't see the Kings of War FAQ that Ronnie and friends did live a couple of days ago, so middle of January, one of the things he pointed out was if somebody wanted to buy the STLs for the Plague Mule for Dead Zone / Firefight, what they had to do was go through every month from the last 2 or 3 years of the vault until they found that specific entry, that month that had the Plague Mule in it, and then buy the parts out of that or buy the whole pack and then print it out, which was very inconvenient for anybody who is just looking for unique or specific things, or going, I wonder how many goblins they do for Dead Zone. Who knows? Where can you find them? Haven't a clue. You know, good luck in tracking all the pieces down. So the digital storefront that they're making is going to be more like the regular shop storefront. So you can search by game, search by faction, search by bit. So you can go, okay, well, I need to find my Kings of War Ogre bagpipes. Where are they? Boom. You can just go down through, and it should make shopping actually like shopping. Whereas the vault was more of it was nice, it was supplemental. You were never sure what was coming from one month to the next. And, you know, if you happen to be playing around with 3D printing, yeah, it was a bit of a lark. Whereas now I think they're looking to make it more structured and more like an actual business, rather than just, oh, we can do this, so maybe we will do this because it'll be fun to do it. Now it's a case of, well, there's whole games like Armada there. But if people want all of the fleets for Armada, they've got to go through and go, where do they live? Here, there, and everywhere, which is inconvenient at best. So there will be a digital version of the Kings of War, so of the Mantic store, which will then make everything much more regimented and structured and easier to search and easier to add stuff to as well, I believe. But time will tell. I've never printed a model out in my life, so I have no idea.
No, I think it makes sense. You're absolutely right. Like even for me now, I mean, there is a bit of a search engine in the vault for the stuff they already have, because it happened to me recently. I went to print some GCPS bits, and you have to think, okay, wait, they came in September and in July maybe, and then you had to go through it and have a look. So yeah, there was already a bit of an intermediary step with a search function, but I think it makes complete sense to have a proper store. As you said, just treat the files like each specific bit or model is available separately, and it's especially valuable once you start doing the print-on-demand stuff for people who can't print themselves or have stuff printed by a friend or like a contractor of any kind. Because people obviously in that scenario will want to buy a specific item, and it's a good move. I think the other change that they announced, but there's still a bit of uncertainty around, is a price increase. Let's see exactly what they do and what they announce. But for few people, probably all three of us, if you subscribe to the Vault from day one, you get a very important discount. I think we pay only £4 a month instead of £10, so that's a massive, massive discount. And that discount would be potentially gone. We don't know yet. The other thing is the companion. If you pay yearly, you pay a bit less. And they haven't told anything about a potential yearly payment option. So it remains to be seen exactly. Yeah.
They have put monthly pricing in. So your lowest tier is $4.50 a month. These are in sterling. So similar for euro. Probably a little bit more expensive. But yeah, $4.50 for the basic one army. Then it's $7.50 a month for all of the IP companion, $7.50 a month. And if you want the companion builder and all the digital stuff and the vault, it's £15 a month. So I've been subscribed to both since day dot. I have no idea what I'm paying a month. Haven't a clue. I pay one on yearly, and the other one, it was like if you were already a gold subscriber and then you got into the vault, you got a discount, which was grandfathered. So I mean, I probably paying less. I don't know.
Well, I
I'm
can
with
tell you how
Joey.
much you're
I
paying.
set it up 2 years ago. Yeah, please do, Clem.
So maybe I'm wrong, right? Because it's not like I look at this too carefully. I should, but I think the companion gold subscription right now is 60 a year, and the vault is 4 a month. So that's 108 a year all in all. And 15 a month goes to 180 a year. So that's kind of 60-70% increase. Yeah. So let's see, because again, for now they've only said this is the monthly price. They haven't talked about a yearly price, which in theory should be a bit of more of a bargain.
So, Clem, the
Yeah.
price is going up 70% a month.
Well,
Even for
the
existing
monthly
members.
price, I don't know the monthly price, because if you pay yearly, you already pay a bit less as of today, right?
Right.
And the vault, if you subscribe from day one and had a gold subscription to the companion, you got a crazy 60% off. Like you pay £4 a month instead of 10.
Which is what I'm currently doing. Yeah. I mean, to be
Right.
honest, I know I'm getting a really, really good deal as is. I pay for I pay the £4 a month and have for the last 2 years. I don't have a resin printer, but if I ever want anything printed by friends, occasionally I'll ask friends like Clem to print something for me. I think for that amount a month, I think it's very fair that I can then ask a friend, and I am paying for the file, so my conscience is clear. If that's going to jump up 70%, I might think about that and think, well, actually, I might. I will seriously think about that and think, well, do I? Is it worth? Am I getting value out of it to continue that?
Yeah.
It may be I just stop asking friends to print me things and save the money every month. But I'll have to look at it quite honestly, to be honest. Because when you start talking about 70% increases, that sounds like a lot suddenly, doesn't it? Even if we're getting a great price as is.
Yeah, I mean, then the question is, what is it if you buy the files directly, like separately, right? Because I guess that in almost any scenario, that would be the more expensive version of it, depending on how often you buy files. So I still see an advantage to subscribing to the vault. I think the interesting question for me is, I didn't even check. So you said $7.50 a month, right, for the all-in companion subscription.
Yes. Yeah.
How does that compare to £60 a year? That is also an increase. Even if they add us. Yeah, I mean, every price increases these days, so I guess it's not that much of a surprise.
Yeah. The other thing, and I suppose we're sitting in a relatively, I'm going to say, unique position. It may not be that unique, but we're looking at it from a point of view where we joined on day one when there was nothing in there and nobody knew what you were going to get, and the pricing was very low because we were already subscribing to something else. However, anybody who's joined after that initial 3-month period, because I think it was only the very, very start of the vault, you got that discount. So we're looking at going, oh, this is a 70% increase for us. But there could be quite a lot of vault subscribers or people using it who aren't getting that discount and are paying substantially more, and they're looking at it going, oh well, actually it's about what we're paying at the moment, or it's a slight increase. So I think it's very easy to get hyper focused on how it will affect you personally sometimes, and it may not be as bad as we're looking at it.
And as well, I think with things like this, or your rent or whatever, let's use the example of you pay your rent every month. If your rent hasn't gone up for 10 years in a row, and then suddenly your landlord realizes and go, oh, flip, I've got to increase that, a constant amount. You go, oh my goodness, my rent is now suddenly 50% more. That's outrageous. Whereas, if it had gone up, at the rate of inflation over those 10 years, it's gone up a little bit every year. Obviously, as somebody who's living in this flat, you're not going to think to yourself, oh, brilliant. Well, I've had 10 years where the price didn't go up. So I'm lucky, actually, if I think about it. You're going to think, oh my goodness, this is now absolutely outrageous. So I think, if you do price increases on subscription services, I think little and often is probably kind of less feel bad even if actually, ironically, it ends up adding up to actually being more money, then just, the price stays the same for 2 years and then it jumps 70%. Because actually, I wasn't really, I haven't really been paying attention to this. Then the moment Clem says the price is going up 70%, okay, 70%, I got to look at this, right? If it was going up 20%, I'm not that bothered. But suddenly 70%, that sounds like a lot, even if the amounts we're talking about are actually really small. And we were paying, if we're honest, we know, the three of us know, we were paying an unbelievably low price for the past 2 years. But suddenly I've got to scrutinize this,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm with you, and I'd also just thrown it out there. If you're not using it massively, if you're not in there printing out pretty much every month's worth of stuff, then maybe going for the club membership, the medium level, where it gives you a 10% discount to the digital store. So if, for example, Chris, you're only printing out the occasional thing, then why bother going for the full Vault plus subscription? You go, well, I'll go for the middle one. Just pick up what you need.
I'd throw in an idea for Mantic, actually. If you look at, for example, Humble Bundle, which is a charity online video game store, the longer you've been a member, the more so I think, and I'm doing this off the top of my head, but I think if you just join their monthly subscription service, it entitles you to a 10% discount on the online store. If you've been a member for X number of months, that bumps up to 20% discount. And if you've been a member for for Y months, so let's say, 12 months, I'm making this up now, but then you get a 30% discount on the store. So there is an incentive to stay a member, but also you're getting a really nice reward out of that. That's so if you buy a brand new video game through the Humble Bundle store, you're getting a 30% discount. That's chunky stuff. So games these days are sort of literally €80. Well, you're getting a huge discount. So there's a huge incentive for you to stay a member, and you also feel like, hey, I'm getting a great deal. And I do think feeling like we're getting a good deal is very important for these kinds of, digital subscription services.
Yeah, I think so. I have two things on my mind as well. One is I see in my gaming group people who play, let's say, Kings of War. Not all of them have a subscription to the companion. And I guess that's okay, right? Like that's why the free version exists. But there's a bit of a question mark here for me, right? Like what does it look like for someone new to Mantic or new to the hobby? And it's I'm not too sure. I always try to convince people, hey, why don't you just get the subscription? And like, it's a monthly cost, and I play not that often, so I don't know. It's always a bit of a question mark. And the other interesting thing is to have the Vault and the companion merged as one thing. So I'm not sure if there were many people, to be honest, who were subscribed to the Vault and did not have a full companion subscription. Maybe that's why they've done it this way. I don't know. To be honest, I'm with you. The price increase on paper looks horrendous, but it's still a reasonable amount. And I think I'm more interested in what do I get out of it, right? And I mean, there's been still a few small issues here and there with the companion and the UI of the Vault as well. And so I don't mind paying a bit more if Mantic steps up their game in what they deliver for the money.
I think this is going to be a running theme in this episode, Clem.
Yeah, I don't know, but like if they say, you know what, okay, we've experimented with the Vault and the companion for the past 2 or so years, and now we've decided, this is definitely something we want, that's something strategic for us, and we're investing in it, and we're making it a larger part of our business, of our website, and so on, and now it's Mantic Digital, and there's a bit of a price increase because we're just aligning to inflation and so on, and you get awesome features like like a step up in what you get for the money, well, I'll be the first one in line to give them more money, right? If it's just, it costs more because it costs more, but it's the same things with still the same quirks that we've seen for months now and haven't been fixed. It's a bit more of a difficult pill to swallow. So I guess time will tell. I think they said it's for February, or is it March? Jerry, do you remember what the release time? February. Yeah. Okay.
Well, if you go to the Mantic Vault now, it's sort of had a rebrand of the Mantic STL store, and it has what will be the searchable filters are in there, but I don't think they're working yet. I think it's just this is where it will be going, but we then need to go in and actually press all the buttons to make it work and make sure all the files are divided and blah, 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 blah. So yeah, they're already here in January starting to do the overhaul and the refit. But then I think it's going to all launch from, well, I say February, it might be late February into the start of March, but we'll see.
What might, and sorry guys, and sorry dear listener, I appreciate we're talking a long time about the Vault now, which, some people are going to find very interesting, some people perhaps not so much. Perhaps one thing that might be helpful was, for example, if every now and again Elliot could send around a newsletter with a kind of a changelog for the app, because I think we don't hear very much about it, and there are things about it as we've alluded to that are a little bit frustrating. So if we could see, this is being worked on, and this is where our money is going every month, I think that would probably be helpful in terms of perception. Like, here's a change log, this month. You don't have to go into detail of, okay, I fixed 20 bugs and but just, I've added functionality. I think that would just occasionally, I think that would be helpful as a consumer who's paying for this.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I don't know how much or how often they work on it. I don't know if it's, if there's somebody there for a full 40-hour week working on the Vault, or if it's somebody else's job to tackle it ad hoc. So it's going to be an unusual one where I suppose the proof of the pudding is in the eating, as they say. So we'll see how things pan out in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to put it into perspective as well, one other thing I wanted to mention is I've also got the Warlord app. It's nothing to do with 3D printing, but it's just a list building web-based app. And that's for all their current games, and that's £2 a month, and it's great. I very strongly think it's made by our friend Jamie in Bournemouth. But that is £2 a month. It's a bargain, and it's a really good tool. So that's a thing. Super guys, any final thoughts on the app /Mantic Digital /Mantic News? The only other thing possibly before we move on is this month, and that's January, dear listener, the Worms box set is currently 25% off on the Mantic web store. I only played it once, had a demo of it, and it was great. It was really chaotic, silly, fun. So yes, I can really see the appeal of that. Good fun game. So dear listener, if you're in the market for a 25% off, not a bad deal. Guys, anything else to touch on before we write back?
Very quickly, the Kings of War Champion box that we mentioned there. So the Salamanders Champions box is going to be STL and 3D print. It is adding 3 new units, although one of them, the Gekota regiment, is already in the Salamander STL files, but this is the first time you're going to be able to get those models. Also the Kaisnor Lancers, which weirdly we've seen the Raptor mount that they're on before, because the Interdimensional Traveller Blaine, one of his Kickstarter models, came on that Raptor mount many years ago. It may have been second edition, Kickstarter exclusive. And I've always really liked that sort of weird dinosaur-looking thing. So that's, at least we have now the Kaisnor Lancers, the Gekota, and a new type of salamander, in the same way that Axel Tricklebrook, the axolotl, was frozen during the War with Winter. The Hailthorn salamanders were also volunteered to be frozen and thawed out at a future date. So these are a new salamander type. where they, in Champions terms, they get progressively better as the game goes on. They're like a slow burn. Their nerve sort of increases over time, so people have to deal with them early or they're going to run into problems. I'm imagining if they're coming into Champions, they'll be coming into Kings of War as well. I've not checked to see if they've already filtered in there, but using Champions to expand Kings of War as a whole again, which is nice.
That's cool. I thought these guys were basically the ancients, but so you said there's something different. Oh, I need to look it up. Then.
Completely different. So the ancients are aged. These are actually ancient. These were around before the ancients were around, but then were cryogenically frozen like Fry in Futurama, to be thawed out and have fun times delivering messages of death to the Salamander's enemies. Good news, everyone. I've got Hailthorn Salamanders. Wait a minute, that's not good news.
To shreds, you say?
To shreds. So yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting again to see where they go in the grand scheme of things down the line, because the digital print on demand means you don't have the lead up time for plastics. You know, Kings of War 4th was somewhat delayed because the new plastics weren't ready to be boxed, to be shipped. And I know they originally hoped to do it in like October, and then it became November, and then they were shipping in December. If they start to run into the digital more, they can actually have a more consistent feed of new releases without having the pressure of, Archon is printing 350 million copies of StarCraft. We won't be able to get a plastic out of them for the next 6 months. So we've had to delay everything, you know. It's like having in-house production to a certain extent. Now we'll see how well the in-house production for digital works, because print on demand obviously is time consuming compared to the speed at which plastic sprues can be pushed out. But they don't have to rely on somebody else to do it. So we may see, especially with the likes of the new books, like Invasion, where they're introducing new things to armies, where we get less static armies, if that makes sense. You know, where we're seeing new things being developed without having to worry about the production of a hard plastic sprue to go with.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah,
cool.
That makes sense. I just checked because I have the PDF for the Invasion book, and you're right. Like the Heelthorn or whatever the name of the new unit is nowhere to be found in the Invasion PDF, which is kind of a weird thing, isn't it? Like the Invasion is the book of 4th edition where the Salamanders do something, and then there's a new unit that isn't in this book, like a month after the book is out. It's interesting. All right, should we move on? Any other news that we want to talk about? Like I'm sure there's a lot going on that we haven't really followed.
Yeah, Halo has new Mombasa. We're not really across that, are we, Clem? So I think we'll leave it to MUP Halo to cover that competently as they do.
That sounds like a plan. Yeah. All right.
Hey there, I'm Brian.
And I'm Rick.
From Dead Zone, the podcast.
And you're listening to Mantic Universe Podcast.
For everything Mantic under the sun.
So, gang, our Warpath, Firefights, Dead Zone, and Warpath, Epic Warpath. I have a couple of sentences to say, and then I'll just quickly say that and then get out of the way. I tried to start painting my Forge Fathers. So I left the models on the sprue because I'm very bad at fiddly, little tiny models, terrible at that. They'd fall on the floor, I'd break them, etc. So I tried painting them on the sprue, and it just hasn't gone well. I haven't enjoyed painting them. I'm bad at it. I'm really bad at painting little tiny models. And I just haven't I feel like somehow it's different to painting 28mm, but I don't really know why. But somehow I'm not enjoying it, and I'm bad at it. So I did sort of hope I would get my Forge Fathers finished for this month, but I've sort of got 3 sprues half painted, and I really don't know what I'm doing wrong, Clem. So I think I'm gonna airbrush them and start again. To be quite honest with you, I wanted to paint them kind of like a Star Warsy snow theme with orange accents. That was my idea. They look terrible. They really look bad. Yes, that's as far as I've got, and I'm going to put myself on mute.
Yeah, I mean, I have thoughts about this. So I painted my Plague. I'm almost done with the contents of the core box, plus I've printed a few things. I didn't consider painting them on the sprue because it sounds a bit too clunky for me. I guess it is a reasonable approach in some scenarios. Maybe if you, as you said, you don't want to handle them. Although when I paint 28 or when I paint 10, I never handle the model individually like this. I just base them, or like I glue them on a popsicle stick so that I can, handle them, or handle 5 at a time to paint them. So what I've done for my Plague is I've actually glued them onto the base, based them, so with PVA and sand, primed them with zenithal, and then painted them with contrast mostly. And there was a bit of a question of, hey, because when you multi-base units, you definitely don't want to paint them after you base them, because you can't reach. It's really a pain to have your brush try to reach some areas. But on the Epic Warpath bases, the infantry bases with 4 models on the base, for the level of quality that I'm aiming for, I should say as a disclaimer, that's completely fine. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Like painting 10 mils versus painting 28 is a completely different story. I find painting 10 mil being more relaxing and easier because there's, in a way, less to think about. Like you have maybe 4 colors, like 4 areas that you need to think about and then paint. And so you really have to design, in my opinion, you really have to design your color scheme and how you paint them quite differently when you do 10 mil versus 28. And I find it easier, but I guess it's a question of taste. The other thing I would like to say is painting white, like the color scheme that you were intending, in my opinion, is always hard. Like I'm not sure if it's because the models were 10 mil or it's because it's a hard color to paint. But yeah, no, it's. I don't know, Jerry, do you have experience also painting tiny models and want to say something about it?
Yeah, I know some people do paint things on the sprue, and it gives you a stable base. I just rebase everything onto lollipop sticks because otherwise you've got, in a similar way to painting things when they're on the base, there's sprue bits going in every direction, and so easily being able to get the side or the front of a model that happens to be at an angle can be a little bit restrictive. But another thing to watch out for, and it's easily done, is when we paint, people tend to paint relatively close to their faces. And at 10 mil, you can see a lot of detail there that you don't necessarily have to paint. Because when you lift it away, even 30 centimetres away, a lot of that detail disappears. When you're playing and the models are a metre away on the table, you're not seeing any of that at all. And you can tie yourself in knots trying to paint the detail you see when it's 10 centimetres from your eyeball, as opposed to painting it with a striking colour scheme. So I know a lot of people these days really like things like contrasts and speed paints, but they require a light base coat and to be very neat. I still think the best way to paint any sub 15 mil figure is a black undercoat, and then just you're blobbing the colour on. Now, whether you want to do that by giving it a very heavy zenith or dry brush of a light grey or white first, and then just colouring in those high points, red, yellow, whatever, and then just leave all of the black to do your shading for you. But it gives a much better effect from distance for small figures because you get really harsh shadows, and then you can see the colours and more importantly, the definition. You can look at it and go, that's a head, that's an arm, there's a gun, because you can see a big, thick black line between them. It may not be pretty, but it gets the job done. and you
No,
won't go
I'm with
blind
you.
doing it.
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely with you. I think you're absolutely right in the sense that with 10 mils, the models feel more and more like tokens, right? And almost the only important thing is I want to distinguish, okay, these are the HMG units, these are the regular ghouls, and that's about it, right? So you can have a blobby color for the uniform, maybe some skin parts here and there. And it's just the HMG, or there's some part of the gun on that unit that is a flashy, easily recognizable color. And that's the main thing that you want to see. And then you really get the mass of the units gives a quality of its own, if that makes sense. It's kind of the same for Kings of War army, right? Like when you paint a skirmish warband of 5 to 10 models, each model you look at individually. When you paint a Kings of War army of 5 to 10 units, well, the unit in itself, like as a whole, is what has to look good, and each individual model doesn't matter as much, and it's what effect it creates in general that matters more. And I feel for 10 mil, it's even more so.
I think you've given some great advice, both of you, and that gives me a bit more confidence just to go back and keep working on them. And then I'm going to have the confidence to just go, no, I think these are tiny. How much do we actually see from across the table, 6 feet away, whatever? I'm going to base them up and have the confidence that once I base them up, they're actually going to look cool, all grouped together, as you said, Clem. So, okay, so thanks, guys. That's actually helped me a lot. So that's given me the confidence to move on with my project.
I mean, I have another argument for you, Chris, is although I always support playing with painted models, and we'll always say any paint is better than no paint, but the game is so good, I think you really should have something playable, like assemble them, and even if they're not finished painting because you're, kind of struggling for motivation to move ahead with them, just get them assembled so that you can play the game, and let's play it together, and you'll see how awesome of a game it is. And that, at least for me, usually that is a strong source of a motivation of, I really want to spend more time with those models, both on the painting table and on the gaming table. And it kind of, there's a positive circle in a way. Like if I enjoy playing them, I will definitely enjoy painting them.
Clem, let's do this offline. Let's plan a weekend for me to come and visit you, and then boom, that's my deadline, and I've got to get it done for them. So
sounds like a plan.
The fear will motivate me, As they say, Max Payne, fear gives men wings. Yeah, absolutely. Cool, because I know I love the game. It's just getting into it. And I'm pretty sure I will enjoy painting 10 mil little models. It's just, it's not going that well at the moment. And actually, that little bit of reassurance is very helpful, guys. Thank you very much. Super. I might try blue tacking them onto some little coffee stirrers I've got, and give that a go as per Jerry's advice. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, guys.
I mean,
anything else
just
to talk about for sci-fi?
One note on that point. What I tend to do is I use 1 drop of super glue on popsicle sticks, and I found that if you just super glue directly on the popsicle stick, it's hard to remove them. So what I do is I apply tape, like clear tape on the popsicle stick, and makes a very smooth surface that super glue barely holds onto, but good enough to, prime and paint. But then the model is still very easy to pop off of the popsicle stick. And it's particularly helpful for the tiny models because you don't have much leverage to remove them from the popsicle stick. And I've had the issue with 3D printed War Master models for tiny Kings of War. Hey, 10 points for Clem for mentioning tiny Kings of War. So I've had this issue, and the clear tape on popsicle stick is what really saved the whole situation. And with that done, I think we can move on to our next topic.
This is Fred reminding you to visit the Kings of War forum, kowforum.com. No ads, no commercials. That's kowforum.com.
So, guys, we're going to talk about Kings of War 4th edition, and this is sort of our hot take fourth edition review as well. Obviously, we can talk about any games we've played. If you wouldn't mind, guys, and this is not something we've ever done before, but I'd appreciate it, guys, if you would just give me a few minutes to talk, and then I'll hand over to you, and you guys can ask questions and you can disagree with me. But actually, there are some things I would like to just get out there with fourth edition, and if you guys accept, I'd appreciate it if you just give me a few minutes now to go through it. Is that okay, guys? Before I start.
No. So,
I mean,
is that bathroom
dictatorship?
break?
I've had thoughts, and you know me, guys. I'm very disordered with my thoughts, so this is me attempting to get them as ordered as possible. So without rambling, hopefully, we'll see how that goes, dear listener. So I think for Kings of War 4th edition. So for me, this is. In summary, this is a very, very Mantic release. And what I mean by that is the things that Mantic do well, they've done brilliantly in this release, right? I really think the things that they've done well, the best example of that is the rules. So Alessio, the play testers, the rules committee, everyone involved with writing the rules, coming up with the actual game, you've done an amazing job. I still haven't played a game of 4th edition yet because I'm building up my Zerkali 750 points. But the feedback have actually read the rule book. I read the rule book, guys, or at least the rules section of the rule book. I think it's exactly what Ronnie said it would be, and that's the game we love, just tightened up. Some things made, some things were just improved. And, the feedback I've had, for example, from local friend Andrew from the Frankfurt Kings is he joined at 3rd edition. He said to me, I wish this was the game I'd started playing when I joined Kings of War. And I think that is the biggest compliment you can give to the game. It's the thing I love made even better, right? It's a hamburger. Someone's put cheese and bacon in it, right? They've taken something that's already fantastic and they've made it good. And I think we shouldn't underestimate how incredibly important this is, because a new release, a new version of the game, just ask Privateer Press, this is a massive risk, right? How do you attract new players and keep your existing players happy? It's a massive, massive tightrope to walk. And rules-wise, game-wise, absolutely Mantic have done an amazing job. As I said, Alessio, really well done. You've nailed it. And, let's be honest, for months and months and months in the build-up to the game being released, there were lots of wicked whispers and rumours and, some public, some behind the scenes of people saying, this is going to be a screw-up. Someone's going to get this wrong. And I don't know where all that was coming from, but quite frankly, I hate stuff like that. And I had no idea where it came from, but it was there and it was not helping, let's just say. So that totally debunked. The game stuff is great. Now, what I'd like to, and of course I want this to be really balanced. We are friends of Mantic. We are absolutely. We want to be positive about Mantic as a company. We love Mantic. We love their games, but we have to look at this honestly, right? Now, the first thing I want to say is, that's not the first thing I want to say. I've already said the first thing. So I want to talk about the two books, right? So the Kings of War Black book and the Invasion book. Now, two excuses we make for Mantic, rightly or wrongly, historically, and we make them all the time on the podcast, is firstly, Mantic is good value, right? It's, let's say, 30, 40% cheaper than alternatives, right? Historically, you've been able to play their games for a good price, right? And the other thing that we often say is, well, Mantic's a small company, right? They're doing their best. And I firmly believe that. It is still a relatively small company. And the people who work at Mantic are really working hard. I know that, right? They really, really work hard. And by and large, we love what they do, right? But so as a podcast, we got PDF copies of the 4th edition Black rulebook and the Invasion book. Mantic were kind enough to send me physical copies of these books. I received them in the post. Initial impressions are, for both of these books, it is the same basic book as the 3rd edition Big Green book, dear listener. So, it's the quality is quite nice. You look in there and you go, oh, okay, there's nice pictures. Obviously, a lot of the assets have been used previously. But the one thing I want to mention that is, I think, my biggest problem with this. So these books are nearly €50 a piece, right? On the Euro store. They're €47.50 for both of these books. Now, I opened up I think it was the Invasion book. Open it up, have a look. Oh, I like there's a nice little black bookmark in there, flick through it. I started reading and I immediately noticed typos, spelling mistakes, errors, right? Immediately noticed it. I'm not kidding. I didn't notice it 10 minutes in, 20 minutes in. I immediately noticed within the first couple of minutes. And, you look in the book and there's things to like about them. Don't get me wrong. There's some really nice stuff. There's a brilliant looking timeline. There's stuff to recommend about the books. But if you're making this fundamental mistake with a book that you're charging €50 for, I'm really, really sorry. And it gives me no pleasure to say this. That is not good enough. That is simply not good enough. If I'd have paid €100 for these books, I would not understand how have you not run a final spell check on things? Because that's all it comes down to. I can see the work that's gone into this, right? A lot of people have worked hard on this, but fundamentally, how is that allowed to happen where there are basic mistakes in the book? And it's not just me that's noticed it, right? I've noticed on the Fanatics. This is really, really disappointing as a product. And of course, this is 4th edition. This is the best chance Mantic are going to have for the next 4 or 5 years to get new people into this game system, right? If you're a new player and you've just picked up these 2 expensive books, right, and you've picked up the New Zerkali Army, also expensive, what's your first impression going to be? You came from Conquest, you came from the old world. People are saying lovely things about this game, Kings of War. You open this up and the quality is okay, right? It's not anything really, really special. I have issues with the way it's been designed, but fundamentally, they're not running a spell checker on it. Come on. I mean, I'm right. I'm going to move on from that, but that's just not good enough. So this would have been €100 worth of books. We know there are 5 books coming over the next couple of years, right? Who on earth just paid €50 for book 1 and noticed the errors? How many of those people are going to go, oh, brilliant, there's another one coming out in 6 months. I'm going to pick that up. So is this, times are tight, money is tight. What is the market for this? Because the kind of person that pays €50 for a game book is someone that wants the book to be absolutely beautiful. And you can, if you compare it to Conquest, you compare it to GW, their prices are high, but you've got to give it to them. You buy one of their books and they are beautiful. They are, and the idea that you've not run a spell check is just, that's crazy, right? And these Mantic prices, they are not cheap, right? €50 for this book, right? So I don't know where this is going to go. Who's going to buy book 2? Who's going to buy book 3? I mean, what are Mantic going to say? Book 2, hey guys, we've run a spell check. Come and give us €50. Come on. So, that's my thing. That's I've got to leave that there because, this kills me. It frustrates the hell out of me that Mantic have done this. Now, if we look at these 2 books, so let's leave the spelling mistakes behind us, right? Let's look at these 2 books as a release, right? If I play, let's say I play Emperor of Dust, I just had to buy the €50 rule book, right? And by the way, it has a weird font. So somebody and sorry, I'm kicking a dead horse here, but it's got some lovely stuff. It's got a great timeline picture. It's got some lovely stuff. It's got some weird fonts that are quite difficult to read at times. Someone spent ages agonizing over which weird font to use when they didn't run a spell check. So that's sorry, and I'll leave that there. So if I play Emperor of Dust, I only need the rule book and I get all the rules. If I play 4 armies, I also need to spend another €50. If I play halflings, I play salamanders. If I want the same information that I have for just paying €50 as an Empire Dust player. I have to pay €100 to get the army rules for my faction, and I need to spend the €50 to get the rulebook for the full rules. So that's €100 you're asking somebody to pay just to play the game, right? Yes, there's the subscription service. I know that. And I get the idea. I think the idea of making a premium book and offering cheap digital services, that is exactly the way to go. But once Mantic charge these prices, they are putting their neck in a noose that this has to be absolutely right. You cannot have sloppy mistakes in something you charge these prices for. And that is not just the books, that is across the Zerkali 4th edition range, right? So, okay, I'm going to leave it there with the books now, right? But I don't know who is going to pay the money for book 2 of this, and I think that's a real shame. Oh, and sorry, there is one more thing I wanted to mention. Is Clem's mentioned this previously, and this is kind of a running theme of, I think, that people have had a load of good ideas that have just simply haven't been implemented. So in these rule books, in these 2 books rather, a lot of it is the rules, right? Is the rules for factions. Now, that's probably a large part of the reason they have to charge so much money for these books, is that they have to print all these extra pages, right? Now, there's no index on the rules, as Clem is now telling in the chat. That's helpful. But fundamentally, a lot of these books are going to be irrelevant soon. And Clem's already said, get the army list out of the rule book. So, if you actually took the army list out of this rule book, which is going to be, let's be honest, it's going to be invalid very quickly, and we know this, then it's potentially you can have a lower price to the consumer, right? It's a lot less work, and hopefully you can actually charge €30 for this book, which seems reasonable. I don't know, but we are the, making MUP, we are the player side, the consumer side of things, right? It's not necessarily on us to come up with solutions, but yeah, and for example, the Invasion book, okay, a big chunk of it is the rules for these 4 factions, which are almost picked at random. I know they're the ones that are most involved in this section, but it's a luck of the draw whether you were one of these 4 factions realistically. Now, I think for me, this book should be, when you're charging this much, it's something that's going to sit on a gamer's shelf for the next 10, 20 years. So this is a moment in time when they really loved this game, and I think it should be a moment in time for the story, the lore. We should have special characters that were alive at this time. We should have custom scenarios. We should have all this stuff, this beautiful campaign supplement of this. This was a campaign we fought, and these were specific battles. And if we want, in 10 years, we can go down and we can play this, we can enjoy this book with the existing rules, whatever, Kings of War 6th or 7th edition. And we sort of have that, but not really. This is sort of something else. It's not really a campaign book. And so it's, to me, as far as I'm concerned, I loved the idea of this Invasion book when I heard about it, but it's not really delivered what I was expecting. And perhaps that's on me, but I honestly, I just don't, the way that this has been implemented, I'm really sorry. People have worked really hard on this. I get it. And I'm sorry if this is painful for people to hear. And I'm sorry if it upsets people. But as someone who would theoretically have spent €100 on these books, I've got to be absolutely honest. I'm going to move on from the books for a second. So I'm doing the Zerkali at the moment. I'm really enjoying doing them. Don't get me wrong. I'm doing my 750 points. The Zerkali release, I think, some of it is very good, and some of it I think is not good, right? In terms of the models. Fundamentally, the biggest problem for me is the way that the structure of the release has gone, right? So, and I don't have the website up in front of me now, but if you look at the prices for Zerkali, they're really high. And we go back to this. If you put your prices up that much, you're putting your neck in a noose, right? We can't have excuses for things, right? If you're charging premium prices for things, we expect a premium product when you charge those prices. Now, I don't think there's a Kali Battalion box. I don't think that's particularly good value. It comes with the hard plastics. The Spear Wardens I really like them. And I really want to say, look, they're Japanesey style. They're not Chinesey style. I don't have a problem with that. For me, that's fine. I think they're really nice, chunky models. They're nice to build. They're lovely to paint. They look great. Honestly, I really like them. They've got nice detail without being fussy. All the things we like about Mantic models, they're great. The Planestalker sprue, which is a hard plastic sprue, to me is equivalent to a mediocre PVC release that Mantic have made previously. The models are, I'm going to be honest, I don't like them. I think they look derpy. Bless him, Glenn, who has no Glenn on wearing on Facebook Fanatics, who has no connection to this conversation. He's painting his Zerkali. He's made those models look beautiful. He really, really has. Stunning. I don't know how he's done it. I didn't like building them. I'm hating painting them, if I'm completely honest with you. And I think if you get the equivalent of the Ambush box now for them, you get 12 of those models for €65. And that is just a lot of money for a very derpy, silly looking model. Also, it's another kind of dogman, right? So the Spear Wardens, they're dogmen. I'm painting them up as sort of foxes, and I'm enjoying it. These Planestalkers, they're also dogmen, but that's the only thing that they have in common with the rest of the line. They don't have an Asian style in any way. It doesn't matter, Chinese, Japanese, whatever. They look like they'd be something more from the forces of nature, right? They look like they're in sort of woodland attire or just sort of leather straps for the derpy looking, particularly derpy looking melee ones. And so they don't fit. They're also in a different size to the other dogmen. So they don't even look, to me, looking at them on the table, they don't even look like they're from the same game system, let alone the same army. They look like I've just put some War Machine models into my Mantic army. They're the wrong scale. The theme is totally different. So I get the idea we're trying to say the Zerkali Empire is a really big empire, but these things don't. If you look at it, we've kind of mentioned earlier with the Epic, right? You want to look at the army on the table, right, as a whole, as a whole, and just drink that in. Like, wow, doesn't that look beautiful? This just looks strange. I'm really sorry. And Glenn somehow, because let's be honest, he's basically a professional painter at this point. He can make anything look great, and he's made this look great. I'm hating painting these models, and I think they look really silly. If you then look at the range on the Mantic website, I think the buy now for the Zerkali Empire, the buy now with the free beautiful Proud Master model, I've not got that in my hands yet. I don't think it's been released yet. That's going to be stunning. I'm definitely buying that model because it just looks like the best model Mantic have ever done. But that army is nearly €500, and I believe that's without the rules. So if you've got these two rule books as well, you'd be talking nearly €600. And that's not an enormous army. That's sort of to get your 2,300 points. You'll have one unit of the cavalry. It's not like you're getting hundreds and hundreds of models. That's an awful lot of money that Mantic are asking. And I think there's reasons for that, but you're asking the consumer to pay, even for Games Workshop prices, a lot of money. Like, this is serious money, nearly €600 without the rules. Serious money. So if you're doing that, you've got to make sure, as I said earlier, you're putting your neck in the noose if you're charging these prices, and you have to make sure everything is not just good, but it's fantastic, right? And you've thought about everything. You haven't just used the same old cheap Mantic boxes. And I know this is a little point, but historically, if you buy a Plague Mega Army box, right, it's €100 and you're getting a massive army in there. My goodness, it was that incredible value. Arguably too good value, but you can totally understand why it's the cheap cardboard Mantic boxes we all know and love, slid into a thin and flimsy outside colour, outlay. When you're paying nearly €500 for this, cheap cost-cutting, that'll do, is just won't do. It's premium prices. We expect a premium, a premium product. if we look at the photos on the box, I don't think they're better. It doesn't look better than it did the last edition. How many times have we talked on the pod? Mantic, please get your game together. We don't know what it is. Is it the photography? Is it the paint? Me talking to the pro painter at Warlord Games, they said, look, if you're painting for photography, you have to highlight up higher than you thought. We've said all this stuff on the pod. I don't think Mantic have listened. It's the same, going back to what I said at the beginning, the things Mantic are good at, they're fantastic here. The things Mantic historically not so good at, they're not fantastic here. And if you look at most armies for Kings of War, you can look on their website and you can go, okay, look, I don't love the Mega Army box for Abyssal Dwarves or Salamanders, but hey, this ambush box is really good value to get a really good chunk of my army. That's a great deal. And I can get 3 ambush boxes and I'm well on the way to getting my army for a very reasonable amount of money. We're talking, £100 for 3 boxes, something like that. And just looking at this release, I don't see the value. There isn't, and dear listener, please correct me if I'm wrong, but if I look at this, I can't see one tactic for getting this to be a very reasonably priced army. The ambush boxes at €65, they're not particularly generous. One thing I haven't mentioned is the Yan kit, which I've not started building yet. I've just looked at the sprue. I really like that kit, and I have to say they're the human Buddhist monk types. I think that looks great. I will enjoy painting those. I like those models. But the way that Mantic have decided to put some things in plastic and other things in resin, I think has pretty much guaranteed that prices have to be high, right? So, for example, I paid €65 for 3 models of the Lion Snarl Cavalry, right? That's a resin box. At this point, I thought we'd figured out that we put infantry and cavalry in hard plastic, right? The Basilians now have cavalry in hard plastic because players need a lot of those models. They're going to buy a lot of those models. And so Mantic are going to sell a lot of those models. Like, please, please, please stop putting cavalry models in resin. €65 for 3 okay models, I'm going to say. But also the Lion Snarl Cavalry in the list, they have 2 options, right? So you've got a dog riding a lion. And there's 2 options. One is the melee fighty. I'm charging and I'm getting, Thunderous Charge 3 or whatever, right? But you also have guys with bows. Now, who buys dogs riding on lions and goes, I tell you what, I'm going to make these my skirmish troops. They're going to have bows and then they're not going to charge in. They're just going to harass the enemy at €65 for 1 unit. So, and as a consequence of that decision, and I appreciate this is probably a games writing decision, that the people making the models have just had to go along with it and find a solution. But you've got a ton of bits in that box in resin. Like, it's a big heavy box of resin. A lot of them you're not going to use because they're the bow and arrow arm, they're the arrow quiver from the hard plastic sprue that they just had to put in resin because they have to give the consumer what they're paying for. But like, who would have been, if we never had a blokes on riding lions with bows, who would have been upset? Like, if it was just, no, this is a chargy, scary melee unit. Like, how many players are we talking about that are going to go, I know, I'm going to put bows on those guys. So again, it's like with the book, you're putting a load of stuff into it the consumer doesn't need, but you're having to force them to pay for it. So, and across the range, let's say, for example, we look at the cannons, right? €65 for 2 resin cannons. With the best will in the world, they are okay. They are okay cannons. They look like a cannon. They look like, a rocket artillery. They do not look particularly impressive, I'm going to be completely honest. And this is where Mantic have been a little bit unlucky, in as much as I'm sure Mantic weren't aware, but GW finally released Cathay for their old world game, right? Now, the army box, I had a little look a couple of days ago online. I can find that for about €100 posted, right? Just over €100. And that box is so generous with what you get. You get a ton of infantry, you get a ton of cavalry. I think you get 10 lovely chunky models of cavalry, and you get 2 cannons. And I'm going to be honest, they're much, much better quality than the resin cannons that Mantic have just released. And they look incredibly similar. So as a consumer, honestly, are you going to spend €500 on this Mantic release, or are you going to buy cafe models and proxy them in? So, look, in summary, the game is fantastic. There's things I really enjoy about the Zerkali. I'm really enjoying doing my 750 points list, but I have to be super, super honest. And there are other things I could go on, but I don't. It gives me no pleasure kind of bashing Mantic. And I know the people work super hard, as I said, but just getting this release in my hands, I was so excited about it. And this is Mantic's best chance to get new players in the next sort of 4 years. And I see the way they've gone about it, and I just think, I thought we'd learned. Guys, I'm going to put myself on mute because I'm only going to start repeating myself even more than I should. But I'm really interested to hear what your guys' opinions are to that. Am I being too harsh? Go.
Well, I have to digest first, right? And I'm just back from the bathroom break, so no, I'm joking. Yeah, I mean, what's the saying? It's a mark of love when you criticize or like you do open hearts to the point discussions. So I think that's the first point here. And
sorry, Clem, I'm going to jump in and just say one other thing I didn't mention. Look, I just spent €65 on those Lion Snarl cavalry. That they're okay, but that's a lot of money. But also, do you remember a couple of years ago, Clem? I bought like four or so boxes of the flying cavalry for the Stormforged
Hellstrikers.
Yeah, the Hellstrikers, exactly. Thanks, buddy. And part of me now thinks I could spend, I want another unit for my list I've made for Zerkali. I want another unit of Lion's Skull. Now, if I buy that now, is it going to come to the vault next month? And will I feel like an idiot? And so I don't think I'm unique in that situation. Existing players, I think, a significant minority of them are also going to wait and see because, like me, you've been burned in the past. And you go, maybe I just wait and see. And obviously that's going to really hurt your initial momentum, right? Which is so important with a release like this. Anyway, I'm putting myself on mute, guys. And I know that was a lot, but sorry, I just wanted to lay everything out. I've been thinking about this a lot, as you can tell, and I wanted to lay everything out there step by step. I'm going to put myself back on mute. Sorry, Clem.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I think I agree. Just to answer, comment on that particular point. I love that they are using the vault to release stuff or make it available. I think that's great. And I think you've said it in the past a few times also on this episode, but the price is not the issue. It's what impression you get out of it that matters. And if you buy models at a premium and then a few months later they're available as STLs, and then you could have them for a fraction of the price that you paid. If it comes to you as a surprise, it's really a feel-bad moment. If it's clear from day one, this model that we have now for sale in resin will be available as STL later, and so you can buy it now, kind of as a premium to get it right now. But if you were a bit more budget conscious, wait a bit more and you'll get it later for cheaper. Then I think it works. It's fine. So yeah, I think it's really a question of avoid the feel bad moments on this thing. And and I would say for the back catalog, it's kind of an unfortunate consequence of the evolution. So an example is for my Night Stalker army that I've done in 22, 23, I don't remember now. I bought 2 hordes, well now regiments worth of fiends, so like the spider-like units, nightmare to build, but really, really cool looking. And I dropped, I don't remember how much money, but a significant amount of money on them. And now they're part of the vault. That's fair, because back then when I bought them, the vault didn't exist. And so it's kind of, I'm happy actually that now they're on the vault. because I printed some more for firefights and I didn't have to assemble them, and I got them for ultimately a lower price. For the Zircali models, the stuff that you pay quite a premium price for now, and it's this kind of a big question mark, like, will this come to the vaults eventually? Probably yes, but we don't know for certain. We don't know when. This is guaranteed to create feel-bad moments, and I think that's a bad idea. Is it a bad idea to bring Zircali models to the vault? Absolutely not. It's a great idea, but we should be informed about it on right now when you make your purchases, or when you decide on your budget of, do I want those models right now, and I accept that I'm paying a bit of a premium for them to get the latest shinies, or hey, I'd rather save a bit of money, or hey, I can wait, I have other projects, and I'll get them when these ones are released from the vault.
The other thing I'd say, sorry to interrupt you, Clem. The other thing I'd say is, like, if you look at the list in the companion app, it's a big army. Like, there's lots of different units, there's lots of different heroes, there's lots of different options. Did we honestly need that many options? Like, if you're planning an army, I want some, solid infantry, maybe a couple of different weapon options for my infantry. Maybe I want spears, maybe I want swords. Okay, that's one sprue for Zircali. They've done that. That's great. Spear warden sprue. Great. I want some cavalry in hard plastic because I want them to be reasonable. Bear in mind, the consumer can also just kit bash some of these into heroes. We don't need to release necessarily, how many, I don't know, I'm making it up, 8 different hero models in resin. Like, just let the consumer kit bash some of those. Like, we don't need this massive range off the bat, because the only way Mantic can financially put it out there is by putting a ton of stuff in resin. And the moment you do that, it gets really expensive really quickly for the consumer. And I just don't think the value's there.
No, so yes to this. I think you are absolutely right. Also, with it's a mass battle game, and so you want to have either stuff that you can 3D print, although that limits who can actually do this, or have the actual core of the army available as hard plastics that you can throw in a box that is kind of cheap to produce once you've invested in the molds. And people can just buy and have the bulk of the armies, and then have the fancy special units as resins or as STLs. And it feels like for the Zircali, it's as you mentioned, it's not exactly what happened. And I think in general, I agree with you also on the style of the army. I think even if it was made differently, the theme is not really for me. Like, the dogs are fine, but the samurai dogs, okay, well, it's not really for me. But I once you've said it, it was like, oh yeah, it's kind of like putting your finger on what I felt but couldn't name. The style of the army, somehow it lacks cohesive visual element, and that part is a bit disappointing. For the rest, so for the books, I haven't received mine yet. There was a big snafu around my order because I was supposed to have them under the tree, and I still don't have them. It's a long story. So I've only seen them very quickly during the Christmas break, because one of the local players got the books. So I haven't had the time to read them or feel them in my hands. But it's definitely how I feel as well. Like, it has to just be an item, a collector's item. A collector's item can't be something just like you described it. It's just something that doesn't match so well.
Clem, I'm going to tell you now. I've handled my big black book about 5 times the rule book. The corner is already fraying. The spine is already fraying and going white where it's damaged. Already, right? And this is something we plan on keeping for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, the rule book, in a way, it's fair that it's a lived item, right? For me, it's the big question mark was around the invasion book, because the way I imagine it is exactly like you said. It's like the Halpi Clash of Kings book. It's like something you have on your shelf somewhere. And I mean, it was a soft book, soft cover book, and but there's still cool stuff that you might want to go back to later on and read and so on. And I was hoping they would push more in that direction with cool art, cool lore, and you just collect them. But yeah, it looks like they are still have some ways to go to make it to our expectation, or maybe we're just not. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, Clem. So the Black Book rule book, 288 pages. The Invasion book, 160 pages.
Yeah. Maybe that's the other thing. Maybe the rule book could have been. It doesn't sound too crazy to me to pay €50 for the core rule book. You know, it's a massive tome and blah blah blah, and could be the only big book you get in theory. Not if you're a Salamanders player or one of the 4 factions in the Invasion book, sadly. But and then the Invasion books to be smaller but slightly cheaper. Yeah, who knows?
It's not slightly cheaper.
Yeah. No, it isn't. No, but how I... Yeah, I know.
Yeah, in your mind, how you see this really. Sorry, Clem. Yeah, I mean, I can tell you now, I paid €50 for my Warcrow hard black rulebook. I do not regret that one bit, even though I've never played a game of it. I haven't got around to playing Warcrow. That is a beautiful book with no compromises in it. That's just, it's great, and it's worth €50. I'll tell you now.
Yeah, no, I can imagine that. Yeah, and for the rest, I don't know. I don't have much more to say on this. I mean, obviously, we'll talk about it a bit later. But I've played one game of Fourth, and I totally agree. It's great. Like it's still the game we love, and it opens up new options, new things to think about. It's new puzzles. That part is great. That's exactly what I expect from a new edition. I have to say, the main expectation that I had from 4th edition was to bring in new players. And what I can see locally is that there is more interest. Like, definitely some people that have been just lurking around, or, you know, kind of have some knowledge that Kings of War exists. Now that there is a new edition, they are, you know, more active on the communication channels for Kings of War, and so that's very positive. The big question is, will any of these folks have a playable Kings of War army or play Kings of War games in 6 months from today? I sure hope so, but it's not a given. That's big questions, big question marks around this. I just hope that, as you mentioned, Mantic is still great at making rule sets, and that carries a lot of the weight in bringing people in. And I don't know, Gerry, do you have any smarter things to say? I'm running out of steam or ideas.
I don't know about smarter. Right, let's give my point of view then. So, on the subject of typos and errors, it doesn't bother me at all unless it's so egregiously bad it breaks a rule in the game. There might be some. I've not read the rules over and over again yet to spot them, but I haven't seen a rule book come out from any company that doesn't have typos and errors, including Conquest, anything by Warlord, anything by GW. They just don't do it. And whether it's because they don't run spell checks or what, I'm not sure. But yeah, typos I can live with. They always creep in. As long as it doesn't make a rule do the opposite of what it's intended, I'll live with it until it gets errated. As far as the books themselves go, I really like the rulebook. I like the layout. I like the changes to Fourth. Especially in the army building. And it's really weird because I was talking to somebody, Steve Hildrew's running live stream of the Kings of War Masters this weekend, and I was talking to somebody yesterday who doesn't like the new list building in Fourth because he comes from a historic wargaming background and doesn't like the restrictions because he would normally have to do them in historical games. He would have to field a Napoleonic British army that contained line infantry, because that's how a Napoleonic British army was deployed. And he likes fantasy where he can just throw whatever mud at the wall he wants and see what sticks. So the restrictions in list building that they've introduced to make people play core armies, he sees as a negative. I come from exact same background, historical gamer, and I'd like the fact that they've put these restrictions into the list building to make people play armies that are armies, not armies that are heroes and the bare minimum of smut to get onto the tabletop. And I think that's one of the big ones. I'm not in Fanatics anymore because I can't take the stress and the hate. So I don't know what people have been saying about it, but the impression I've got from a lot of people is I can't play my 3rd edition army, which was filth, because they've tried to remove the filth. I'm sure there's whole new ways of running filth in 4th that we'll discover over time. But for the time being, the change to that, I think, is quite good. It's a nice
Clem,
change.
you can no longer play your salamanders, right?
I mean, I did.
Salamanders.
I played.
Did your salamanders
I
continue
managed
salamanders?
Yes, I had to take some gecko time. I mean, for now there were empty bases to try it out. But yeah, no, I had to push things around a little bit and change my list quite a bit. So yeah, it turns out I'm a filthy competitive player because my Salamander's army just doesn't work. Yeah. I mean, I have Scorch Wings, 4 now troops of them in the old list. So I guess I have to admit it is a bit filthy. But yeah, and it definitely doesn't work with the 4th list building options. So yeah.
Whereas I don't think I have any armies that have been rendered invalid by 4th, because I would always push. Can I take massive blocks of units, hordes and regiments everywhere? Yes, please. Do I take troops? Not really. Not so you notice. Do I take a ton of heroes? Sometimes there aren't even heroes in my armies. Or there's one. And they walk around sheepishly at the back, desperately trying to inspire everybody. So it's like, I'm coming from where Ronnie's coming from, which is I want to see tables packed with soldiers. So it's not an issue for me in any way, shape or form. And it will be for other people, I know that. But we each approach the hobby in a different way. So I quite like how 4th looks. 4th, I imagine the 4th edition rulebook will be the same as the 3rd edition rulebook for a lot of people, in that if you want it, to get it, to read it and put it on your shelf, then you can do that. And at the start of 3rd, it was exactly the same. There was the big rulebook, the green one with everything in it. And then after that, they sort of started stripping things out. And then made the paperback version available. I know for Invasion and the future, is it 5? I thought there was only 4. Whatever amount of expansions there are, only the initial print run is hardback, specifically as a first print run collector's edition for you to pop on your shelf. All the others will be softback, so it will be more like Clash of Kings, except instead of having 1 or 2 armies, they have 4 army lists in it. I see what you're saying, Chris, about having specific scenarios / a campaign feel to them. I don't mind that that's not in there. In fact, it never even occurred to me that would be in there. These are books that tell the ongoing story, and with the story has the army lists. Now, you're talking about if you're one of these players, Salamanders or Carly, whatever, you're having to buy 2 of these books. Imagine you're none of those players, but there were specific scenarios and magic items and stuff in those books instead. And you're going, well, if I want to play this scenario, I've got to buy this book that contains nothing for me except the scenario / whatever it happens to be. I think that would be more detrimental. So it's an interesting one insofar as, yes, you do have to double down on the books to begin with. Will I pick up all of them? Yes, I will. Because I like the progression of the storyline, and chances are I collect enough of the armies that I think probably every book will contain something for me, unless they manage to find one book to put together that contains all of the armies I hate. which case, that will be tragic.
Elves. Elves, and elves.
Elves and dry undead, the worst kind of undead. But I see where they're going with the books, and Ronnie himself has said, if people don't need the background, want the lore, don't want to have it on the shelf, it'll all be covered by the companion anyway. So again, it's one of those, you can take it as far as you want, really, I suppose. I will pay for the books, and I will pay for the books until the day I die, because as long as I have the books, I have the game. With a digital subscription, you are renting those, even if it says, you purchased it, but essentially a lot of those things are rented, like companion apps. They're there until that server gets turned off.
It's the same as Netflix. You stop paying for it,
Yeah. I've just ordered the Babylon 5 Blu-rays because while I could buy them, I've got every other physical version of them from videos onwards. But when Amazon turn off the Amazon server or decide it's no longer available in my geographic location, it doesn't matter if you've bought it or not, they just remove it. So having physical, yes, you pay for it both in cost and space on your shelf, but it's never going away. It's never going to suddenly change. At no point will the halflings be removed because somebody thinks it's culturally insensitive to dwarves or midgets. There'll always be halflings. At no point will some southern continent army be removed because people say it's a stand-in for Africa and we're being colonialist, or any of the other things that may happen in the future. They'll always be exactly as they were intended. George Lucas can't come in and change the Zerkali in the future. So from a book point of view, I like the books. Yeah, there's going to be issues with them, but like I say, I would ask anybody who's bought a book from any gaming company and it hasn't had issues, post them below, because I don't think there's going to be any responses there.
So, Jerry, I get what you're saying, and I'm in quite a unique position for me of being very negative, being the negative one, and it's a slightly uncomfortable position because this is not normally me. I fully accept if there were a couple of typos, that's fine. I do genuinely, I get it, right? It's going to happen. It's just how quickly, it's bad, right? Or my initial impression was it was really bad, and I think, yes, I can absolutely say, yeah, of course, these things happen to a point. But this genuinely kind of slapped me in the face with how egregious this issue was. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm being unfair. And it's something actually I have wondered, like, am I being unkind? But I want Mantic to be successful. And I think one of the key ways they're going to be more successful going forward is to fix issues that we know they have, and I know Mantic employees, they work super hard, they've got so much to do. I get it, I really do, and I sympathise, but €50 for a book and you literally start reading and you go, oh, that's an obvious typo. And I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself, and it's weird to be the negative person because it's not normally me. But I did, and I do feel quite strongly that this was a real opportunity for Mantic, and I think they've only really half taken it. And the most important thing is the game is amazing, and they've hit that out of the park, or whatever the expression is. And then it's so bitterly disappointing that they've done all this stuff that means that really it's a partial victory rather than the resounding victory they deserved. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. Like I say, it may be when I read them again that I'll notice them. I haven't noticed any of the typos so far. So maybe I'm just, because of the way I read, I just glance over them and move on without them actually processing. But the rest of it, the way it's laid out, I really like. I know some people don't like the fact that certain things are in the advanced rules, and they're saying they should be at the start of the book in the regular rules, things like command orders. And I've heard people talking about the fact that command
things
is
like that you
intrinsic
could
to
argue
game.
either way.
Yeah.
It's a decision that's been made. We're not going to agree with every single decision Mantic make, right? That's just impossible. And things like that, I think, are more kind of nitpicking, to be honest. That's just a question of taste. And presumably the people that don't want it in the advanced rules, they're probably experienced Kings of War players anyway. So they're not the person they've done that for. So cool. Jerry?
We've not even gone to the things yet.
Sorry, I'll put myself back on mute. Thanks, my friend.
The plastics, no problem. So book-wise, grand. I'm happy enough with them. They are what I expected. I do think they have missed a trick, though, for new players. And by the time you hear this, it will probably already be out. I've done a review of the Claws in the Sand starter box for on tabletop / Beasts of War. And there was a couple of things that stood out for me in there. There's a lot in that box. Miniature-wise, it's Trident Realm against Zerkali. And as a 2-player set for somebody who's already playing, it's great. It's jam-packed full of tiny fighting men. It has a little bit of a story. It's got a quick reference, the A5 rule book, which I think is probably going to be the standard that they put into starter sets this time round rather than the big full rules. But there were 2 things that stood out that aren't in there. And when we're talking about getting people to play Kings, it's a starter set that contains no dice and contains no tokens and measuring tools. So there's no tape measure, no measuring sticks, none of that. When you look at what they've done for Epic Warpath, there's a ton of tokens and bits and pieces in there. There's a load of acrylic add-ons, tokens, magic cards, measuring sticks, all of those things that, they are upgrades for what you would normally use. But for a brand new player who is just getting into toy soldiers for the first time, that's not there. So you're expecting people to have some form of measuring device and some form of D6. And I keep hearing, people go, everybody's got D6 in the house. Whenever I was growing up, we didn't have a huge amount of D6. I could probably have scraped 4 D6 up from a couple of board games whenever I was a kid. But when I got my first board game, that quadrupled, if not quintupled, the amount of D6 I had in the house. And for a lot of other non-gaming families, it will be the same. And I think for having a starter set that doesn't contain measuring devices and things like your tokens for damage or waiver or what have you, they're all in. I mean, they could have just more or less taken the Champions token set and put that in. It's got measuring sticks, it's got objective markers, it's got wound markers. Those basic things, they should be in that box. That's my biggest takeaway from it as a con. I mean, it is literally packed to the point where they had to make the box bigger than it should be sleeve-wise because the regular sleeve wouldn't fit round it, and then sort of had to pack the difference out with a bit of cardboard because they've crushed as much plastic as they can into that set. And the new Trident Realm plastics are gorgeous. The Zerkali and Yang and are very good as well. I haven't seen the Pathfinders / Wildies. I have no idea what they're called. The ones you don't like, Chris. I've not seen the plastic. Yeah, Planestalkers / hairy barbarians. Wild Fangs. That's what they're called. I remember when I seen the preview, I looked at it at the time and went, that's a dual kit, and they've made them look odd because it's a dual kit. And they want them to be an archer unit and a hairy barbarian.
That's exactly how I feel. Yeah.
They do stand out to me as well. I wasn't a fan of those. The rest, as the guy from Shitty Walk says, they are actually based on a more Chinese / Mongolian. Goddamn Mongolians. So your Spear Wardens and everybody else are that, which is probably why you have things like the Lion Star Cavalry with bows, because they're Mongols. They're all about fire until you're weakened enough and then charge in. And that one pack, the Hunter's pack of plastics, just, they look odd because I can't see the Mongolian influence. If they looked more like that, then maybe they would tie in a bit better. But I'll throw this question out to you. That's a sprue, and the Yan Regiment humans, that is probably what they would have had to drop to make the Lion Snarl Cavalry in plastics. So you have a sprue and a half to put your spear/bow people on top of giant cat cavalry. Would you have been happy enough if they went, we're not going to do the human infantry and we're not going to do the Wildfang Planestalker infantry, but we're going to do the Spear Wardens and the Lion Snarl in hard plastic?
So I would have redesigned the cavalry so that they could have potentially done it on a sprue rather than taking up multiple sprues. I wouldn't have made them so chunky to start with. I'd have just made them, riding on a smaller animal. It didn't have to be on the lion. And if I'm honest, the lions don't look particularly good. It looks like they come from the Hellstrikers a little bit. So I just would have done, it's cavalry guys, and then you could easily have had on the Hell Plastic Sprue, you easily could have had an arm with a bow on it. That wouldn't take up much space, right? I mean, we're no experts at this, but I would have killed my lovelies, as they say. I would have just kept it. Just keep it really simple. Just really simple. How can we do this as effectively as possible? It's not worth the big chunky cavalry. It's not worth. It doesn't have the wow factor you think it does.
I think in a way the army suffers from the let's come up with a design that doesn't exist and that nobody can proxy factor. And I think that's been a strategy for Mantic releases. In a way, it's there, right? Like, I understand that when you were about to invest big piles of cash in making molds for plastic units, you want to make sure you're not competing with a bunch of other stuff, or that people will buy your competitors' models to use your excellent rules and not buy your own models. The issue with that is then sometimes you end up with a very exotic, and I don't mean that in a positive way.
Niche
design that, there's no proxy of this, but that's also because it's appealing to a very small subset of an already niche market. I understand where the strategy comes from, but I'm not sure it's a very sustainable long-term strategy. Like, we haven't mentioned this, right? But the next army has been announced now to be Forces of Nature, and I'm very much looking forward to them.
That's why they have those weird Fang models in, because I'm sure they're going to dual put those in both
arms. We don't know that.
Sure, that's why. Yeah, we don't know, but that must have been part of the decision, because they don't fit the Zerkali. It doesn't fit the Zerkali. It fits Forces of Nature. I think, Clem, I think you've made it.
I think when the first previews came out in September, I think on a weekender, I said exactly the same thing about the Wildfangs and the Pathfinders, where I looked at them and went, they're going to be, they may not get much of a run out, but oh my God, the amount of Forces of Nature players picking those up to replace their werewolves will be beyond belief.
Yeah. But Clem, I think you're absolutely right, and you make a great point about how you can't proxy things in. But I'm going to say that cuts both ways. And if Mantic actually made a really compelling release for this, you could theoretically have people proxying Mantic models into their old world Cathay armies. So if you don't make something incredibly niche, if you really believe in your product, put it against rival companies and say, hey, no, people, we believe in what we do. We know the quality's right. If people are going to be buying our models to play another game system, that's how good our models are. We're not concerned about people eating our lunch. We're going to eat other people's lunch. And with this release, we're not there, right? We're just not there.
I don't think they've done that. Simply because I could proxy a Zerkali model right now with stuff I've had in the house for the past 10, 12 years, probably more. I already have enough dog/werewolf things from other game systems that I could do it. And even then, that's only if I stick with dog type things. The thing about proxying is you can do anything up to and including a block of wood will do the same job, because it is a footprint based game, so you're not having to worry about individual models. So I genuinely think that we've seen now the full world of Panathor, which we hadn't seen before. So this was another area that they could explore and shape. And so they've come up with this Mongolian feel. They've shown us what's going on in some of the other areas. And some of the stories, they talk about things that are very Slavic, like a boyars being overrun by Zerkali forces. So there's never any point in trying to make something that can't be proxied, because it can. I could proxy that army with goblins and ogres, for example, if I really wanted, because it's just big guys and little guys. There's always ways and means around it. So I don't think any company sets out to go, we're going to make these and nobody else will be able to do them, because I'm pretty sure within about 20 minutes of these hitting the web store, there's probably about 5 or 6 companies making some sort of AI 3D printed slop that you can just print out. And, look at War Master miniatures and stuff. I know certain things aren't in production anymore, so other companies have taken them up. But there will be other companies or other ranges out there with dog-faced humans where you can just go, well, I'll just buy those.
Yeah, and actually, Jerry, I've just turned to the map in the new rule book, and you're mentioning, the world has been built out. Just having a little look at it now, it incredibly, it just maps our real world, right? So there's a place called Mughal, which is, Mughal is the capital city, and Lahar Killa, that's India very clearly. There's jungles. There's the Tensinote shogunate. That's going to be Korea/Japan by the look of it. And the Zerkali Empire are, as you say, kind of the Eurasian steppe. And as you said, going into attacking, I read that short story as well in the book. Attacking boyars, obviously, as you say, boyars have very much a sort of Slavic, Russian, and of course in history the Mongols definitely had a good time attacking those kinds of people. So yes, so it's very to me it's very clearly mapped into our own real world. But again, the fascinating thing about the steppe is it's grassland that's it's not able to support trees or anything. It's grassland. That's the best it can do, because I think the reason is the air is coming from the Arctic rather than from anywhere else. So it's pretty life is pretty grim, and you can't. The Mongols would have ridden around on probably pretty thin ponies. They wouldn't have been riding around on lions. The steppe, I don't think could support that size of predator. But anyway, that's very much nitpicking.
But the weird thing is, though, they've got the aesthetic of the Mongols, but they don't fight in a similar way to the Mongols. Really, what they should have been laying into is the fire and manoeuvre. In fact, let me grab the Invasions book to check out what their command options are. Because when you're saying nobody's going to put bows on line snarl cavalry, realistically, everybody should have bows. Even the infantry should be bow and then equipped with some sort of sword and board, because
Jerry,
they should
what
be
you're talking about
we can attack.
Interesting, really interesting, and have a glass cannon army like that. But the infantry, they're more Japanese heavy samurai infantry, like it's kind of you're pulling from different sources and which would have very different play styles. So I think, unfortunately, I think we're looking focusing on one would have been much better. Japan, Japan, China, or Mongolia. It would have been much better to focus on one.
Yeah, but their armour is more Mongolian/Chinese rather than samurai. That is not a samurai style armour on them. Superficially, it looks similar, but yeah, it's just if they're gonna lead into the idea of a Mongolian style force of dog soldiers, I think they should have really doubled down on that.
I mean, basically, all of it should have been cavalry, really, right? It should have been a mounted army for the most part.
Yeah, or you don't put in lion snarl cavalry, and you work on the principle that your Zerkali are dog soldiers. They're bigger than regular people, so maybe they can run as well as other cavalry can move. So you make them an armoured Mongolian force on foot. You work to the principle that
centaurs. What if they were from the steppe and they were centaurs that led their own herds, rather than being dogmen that ride on horses or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter how you do it, insofar as they could still be dog people, but they perform in the same way. You know, if you know that you can run as fast as a human on a horse, then you run up, fire your bows, retreat, fire and retreat, until your opponent is so weakened that then you can deliver the crushing charge. But the game mechanics they're not built into the army list to make that happen. So aesthetically, they're Mongolian, but they fight more like a traditional infantry army, I suppose. It's like they've had two ideas. One is the mechanics of how the army work, and the other is how the look of the army is, and they don't mesh as neatly as they could have done.
Mm-hmm. Yes, guys, after my rant, does anyone, for purposes of balance, does anyone want to, come at me and tell me I'm wrong on anything else?
No, I think I'm with you on pretty much the rest. I think the main problem with the Zerkali army, from my point of view, is Mantic have been hammered for years with the where is Unit X for Army Y. So they've released an army that contains everything, and by wanting to release it all at the start so that people didn't have to worry about, I don't have my cavalry yet, I don't have my human infantry chaff yet, I don't have X, Y, or Z, or this hero isn't out. In the rush to get everything ready for release on day one, the army it's probably not hit every touchstone that it could have done. If they'd drip fed it out over the next 6 months or 4 months or what have you, if they'd gone, here's the initial plastics, pathfinders and warriors, along with a couple of the heroes, and then in 2 months' time we'll release the cavalry and another couple of heroes, and then a month after that we release the Yan infantry, and then the Yan side of things, maybe make that the third wave, adding in the humans if people want to go that direction. Maybe they'd have a bit more time to develop it, iron out the wrinkles, but then would people have been sitting there going, I can't play my army from day one? It's in the rush to make sure that everybody is satisfied. Maybe they haven't satisfied everyone or anyone.
I get what you're saying, Jerry, but do we need, for example, the number of heroes we just didn't need? I wonder as well, could you not have, we were talking about, one of the things we were talking about with these invasion books and, books 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever, they were going to release more units in these books. So, if you've only got 3 hard plastic kits for the Zerkali release, actually, would it really have hurt if we, and maybe it would, interested what you think. Well, let's not release the full army list yet. Let's just give people, a couple of infantry options, a cavalry option, or maybe a couple of cavalry options. And I fully get what you're saying now about they're supposed to be Mongolian, but I feel like actually then that doesn't, what Mantic released didn't quite make sense. And what you're saying, I think, is interesting. And maybe just a couple of resin heroes, or, we just accept people can kit bash a couple of heroes. And then, 6 months, whatever, down the line, when people have done their, done a ton of stuff, we can, we could maybe release another plastic kit or whatever. Like, it's I don't know. It's just having so many different heroes in resin. It's expensive for the consumer. And I look at the list and go, do we need this? Like, for the release to be fun and satisfying and cohesive for the player, did we honestly need all of this stuff all at once? Like, and what would have been the problem had we not?
Especially in an edition where heroes and champions are far more limited than they were previously. You're not seeing a ton of... You're not seeing hero spam anymore because you're limited in how many you can put into a battalion or company or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I think they probably could have got away with having a few less of those. Maybe do a second wave 6 months later.
I think the one question is, it's a mass battle game, and so you need quite a bunch of stuff for your army, and there's a question of how do you handle waves of releases when people are building their army progressively and planning for it. At the same time, if they plan to stick to one campaign book every 6 months with one army getting a major update, like a bunch of new plastic kits, and 2 or 3 other armies getting also, extended command orders, maybe a couple of heroes and stuff like this. It's hard to fit everything in, right? Like from a practical perspective, I guess Mantic has a budget they can invest in how many plastic kits they do per quarter or per year, and then you need to make a decision what will actually sell. I don't know. Yeah, it's a big question. I mean, people have been complaining for a long time about incomplete ranges, right? So I don't know what the best option is here.
I get it, guys. Clem, there's 23 different units in this army list. 23. That's a lot. And let's say off the top of my head, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think 5 of them are in hard plastic. No, 6. No, it's more. Okay. So I think 7 of them are in hard plastic, roughly.
There are 3 new kits and they're all dual purpose kits, right?
Exactly. That's 23 units for a new army. That's a lot. If you're GW, sure, you can put all that in hard plastic, no problem, right? We're not there. So I just wish the whole thing was simplified. Do we really need this many warlords? Do we really need this many supports? Do we really need this many champions? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 champions. Would we, if we had 4 champions, 3 champions, would we have been happy when we just didn't know what a siege master was or a Leng Yu? And besides which, look, if it's a dogman or one of these Buddhist guys, just let us kit bash from the whole plastic sprue. Like, it's the resin kits Mantic sell. I don't think they're very profitable for Mantic anyway. They're a pain in the arse, and they're they're very labour intensive, and the cost of resin's gone up a ton. And as I said, when you're charging €65 for a kit, you are losing a lot of goodwill, or potentially anyway. But anyway, guys, yes. So anyway, I think it's fair to say I've poured my heart out on this one. Clem, you've played 4th edition, so maybe we can talk about that in a little bit. Gerry, anything else you want to touch on before Clem talks about his experience playing the game?
No, I think that's pretty much everything. Yeah.
I mean, Gerry, you've been invaluable, giving some really helpful, an alternative point of view, and I think you've given some really, really important balance to the conversation, which is really essential. Am I just being grumpy? Do you think, as an overall, am I expecting too much?
I mean, it's one of those things. You set your own level of expectation, and clearly, you thought after all these years, Mantic were going to come steaming out of the gates and hit it great guns, and they haven't. So for you, that's a disappointment. Whereas I assumed that they would continue on a similar trajectory to where they have been, and they have. I'm going, yeah, that's fair enough.
In hindsight, I've thought about this a lot. Like, where did I get the impression that Mantic was suddenly going to fix a load of problems? Like, maybe I'm just hopelessly naive. And maybe that created unfair expectations. But I don't know. A big part of it, I think I wouldn't have been as agitated were the prices not where they are. If this book was €30, I wouldn't have been. Oh god, there's a load of typos in there, but it's pretty good. But when you're asking these prices, I do think, I mean, we trying to get new players in. I mean, if you're paying these prices, what's going to be your honest feeling when you open this box, having dropped €500 on this army?
Yeah. I don't think a new player will go press the big button on the buy all or tell it once. But what I will say is, I think you're right with the pricing, insofar as for a long time Mantic have got away with, we do serviceable miniatures at a costed point. When you're getting to the position that you can pick up plastics from other companies that are equal to or better than what Mantic have been producing at a better price point, then you have to look at the direction and structure, because they can no longer rely on you get a ton of plastics Yeah, they're not as good as X, Y, or Z, but you get twice the amount for the same price. Now you're going, okay, you're getting the same amount for the same price, but our quality isn't at that level. That's going to be where they run into problems. And like you say, the resin's very labour intensive and expensive. The Unicool resin, mastercrafted stuff, it's absolutely superb, but Ronnie was saying it's more expensive than the in-house resin. It's just got a higher production rate, which is why they're using it for certain things, but not for everything, because it would cost more. So the detail on the mastercrafted is sublime. It's fantastic. I wish everything was like that. But then you would see another price hike, at which point the sculpting has to go up commensurately, because you are paying a premium now for those things, whereas you weren't when there was all just, here's some hard plastic zombies. You get 2 models on a sprue and 5 heads, go nuts. But you get 60 of them for the same price as a GW box. So everybody had those ghouls because they were and still are the best ghouls on the market. So we're heading up. Mantic look to be taking a new direction. They're not the cut price force on the tabletop anymore, and so they need to justify the pricing, be it in quantity or in the quality of the sculpts. Either is fine. I don't mind if they stay at the same quality, but you've got a substantial amount more in the box. But if the prices go up, then they need to do something to justify it beyond and I know people will be feverishly typing about cost of living increases for everything, but yes there are, but you've got to factor in that other companies have that as well. Human armies, I mean, anybody who wants to do a human army just goes to Vitrix, because what you get in a Vitrix bag guffs all over anything from any other plastic miniature company. And that was the nicest way I could say that. So when you look at what they're doing for historics, you've got to be able to look at something similar for Mantic, for fantasy.
I mean, it's kind of an extreme, but yeah, yes. All right.
Yeah, and I would have been, and I'd have been happy with Mantic bumbling along at the same prices. There's errors, and we know, but I think it was just just once you put the prices up, I think that they can't justify. They've got, as Jerry said, they've got to improve the quality for how much they're asking. And I think that's where my visceral disappointment comes from, is that, geez, this is just a lot more money for, and even the battalion box, would it really killed them to chuck another couple of sprues of the Yan in there just to try and make it seem like a slightly better. Anyway, I'm repeating myself. Apologies, dear listener. And I hate to sound negative. I really, really do. But I've got to be honest at the same time. And it's because I care that I'm so frustrated by these things. Anyway, right. So, Clem, you've played 4th edition. We're 2 hours in.
I did. Yeah. We can. Now that we've talked a lot about it. Yeah. So. I played my salamanders with my good friend Marcus, who was visiting from Greece, and he played his Northern Alliance. Yeah.
So what did you rebase then to get your army? So how many points and what did you have to rebase?
I rebased absolutely nothing. Not yet, at least. All I've done is I used a couple of empty bases to represent Gekota regiments because I needed more core units, because as I mentioned earlier, I'm a power gamer and I only had non-core units in my army for 3rd. Yeah. My 3rd edition Salamander's army was a horde of ceremonial guards, so specialists, 2 hordes, I should say regiments now with the new format, right? So 2 regiments of fire elementals, also specialists, and then Scorch Wings, Greater Fire Elementals, Heroes, big stuff that is even less core units than the rest. And so to make it work, I've taken the Warlord that makes the Fire Elementals core, and it also made sense for me in a way because the theme of my Salamanders army is more fire stuff, so the Fire Elementals. So I liked this option, but still I didn't want to, you need enough core units to unlock more specialists and then support units. I didn't want to have that many fire elementals, and so I just made 2 bases of infantry regiments for the Gekota. And for my heroes, I also just used an empty base with the blue tack model on top to test it out and see what I wanted to do before I spend more energy, making the Gekota unit or rebasing the heroes. And then Marcus' list was pretty standard. I would say I think 2 hordes of the clansmen, like defense 5, melee 3, big block of infantry, cool looking. I believe 2 troops of the dudes on eagles, the dragon, and what else did you have? Oh yeah, 2 regiments of pack hunters with the javelin, and that's almost it, I think. So in a way, because in part I believe the champions are now more expensive, it feels like in 2300 points you fit a bit less units, a bit less stuff. Or maybe you focus more on big hordes, big regiments, which I think is a good thing, right? But anyway, and what happened for the game is, as I was about to deploy, I realized that on my 2300 points list, I only had 2 sources of inspiring with my 2 warlocks or wizards or whatever they're called for the salamanders. Because my warlord... Yeah, I expected my warlord to be a source of inspiring, but he isn't. At least on
I have the exact same thing, Clem, on my 750 points, but I'm locked in now, so I'm doing it. So yes, my leader does not have inspiring. Interesting.
Yeah, so I think it kind of changed my plan. Like I started to deploy, and then it was like, wait a second, that part of my army doesn't have inspiring support because that's where my warlord goes, and he does not inspire. So how am I going to deal with this? And so let's say from pretty early on in the game, it messed up with my plans. And then things went kind of as you can expect from this start. But what else did I want to mention? Yeah, I think the first impression was the change in, basically everybody gets ordered march. Didn't have an impact directly. And I think a lot of what happened was also us being still thinking in terms of 3rd edition, if that makes sense. Both in the ways that you build the list and the ways you deploy and play. It's also very easy to just make small mistakes with the rules because, stuff from 3rd edition you think work the same, or you didn't pay attention to a subtle change. So one example is the pack hunters with the javelin. They shoot on 4s, normally on 5s, but on 4s if you give them the javelin option, I guess because it's only 12-inch range. But what that means is if they don't move, they shoot on 3s, so that gets a lot better. And also, given that you measure the range for shooting not from the leader point, well, it doesn't exist anymore, leader point, right? But from the center of your front arc, but from anywhere on your front arc, they actually get quite an increase in threat range. And so these guys were a pain. We also misplayed Pathfinder because Pathfinder now is only important for going at the double, so for when you run. But on the charge, Pathfinder doesn't make a difference. We missed that part, and so his Thunderous Charge units hitting on, is it 4s? I think they hit on 4s in melee. Suddenly was very, very good for the 130 points, 135 points or so that they cost. What I'm trying to say here is we made a few mistakes with the rules, and so I don't feel like I really have a good position to make a full comment on the rules. The other significant thing from playing that game was the larger base of the heroes, of the champions, makes them a lot harder to hide in a way. And because now they're more expensive and have a bigger base, and also other units double or triple their attacks if they flank or rear charge them, made the heroes a lot squishier, or it made it a lot more, tactical. Where am I placing my heroes? It was a bit frustrating because I did a very, very bad job at it. But I think it is actually how it should be. I think it will be interesting to play this.
Can I jump in?
Because yeah, of course.
Because I feel like, I think you made a great point there. I almost feel like in the old edition of the game, 3rd edition, there was almost like a mini game going on with heroes. And really, unless you brought specifically like duelist hero hunting units, you kind of, for the most part, normally ignored the hero, or I did at least. Like it wasn't worth bothering attacking the heroes, like unless it was like, like a necromancer or something, where your opponent's army absolutely relied on. So it was almost kind of like the heroes thing was almost like a little mini game that I didn't take part in. So I really like this change.
Yeah, I think so as I mentioned, they're now more expensive. You can't spam them because you can only take 3 per battalion. Is that right? Like a limited amount per battalion. And so now your champions or heroes are rarer and a lot more valuable. But I think it's a good change, right? Like we need to relearn how to do this. Especially because the heroes, people double and triple their attacks against them, but they themselves don't double, triple their attacks. So it really, really makes them not as strong. And I guess it really means you have to have, core and specialist and support units do the job and kind of protect the heroes in a way rather than the other way around. And I think it's a positive thing. I just need to learn how to play the game with this difference.
What about the command orders? Did you use many of those? Because that's obviously key for the heroes and warlords.
Yeah, so we tried. Initially we thought, hey, do we even want to use the command orders? Because it's our first game, and we went straight for 2,300 points. I thought, let's give it a try. And so we used command orders for our game. And so the Northern Alliance obviously is not an invasion, so they have only 2 orders. One is, I need to remember, I think one gives basically what's it called, chilling presence. So basically you freeze everybody within 6 inches of a unit or something like that. Like some of the big monsters have this rule built in, and one of the command orders gives this to any unit. But it's on 5s, so it's a bit hard to get, and I don't think he used it at all.
Yeah, both of their command orders are on 5s, so they're both quite tricky to get off.
Yes. The other one gives vicious in melee, if I remember correctly, and that one he used
infantry.
Yes, to infantry. So that one he used systematically, and it didn't always work, because even with the warlord, like 5 up on 3 dice, is still absolutely not a certainty. I think it was okay. Like it didn't seem useless, or it didn't seem overpowered. So that part was interesting. In a way, it sounded a bit too much like, well, there's an obvious use case, that's where I want to do it, and then we'll work on it. But it, in a way, still forces you to plan where you have your commanders well, so that the unit you want this to have, like try the orders on, is in range. On the Salamander side, obviously there are more orders because it's a faction from the invasion book, so there are like 4 orders, if I remember correctly. And I tried a couple of them, and the only one that I remember is the getting +1 in defense, I think.
Yeah, the shield of Thorqual or Thorlak.
Right.
Thor something.
Yes. And it's also harder to get through because you need 2 successes, I believe, right?
Yeah.
It's on 4s, but you need 2 successes. And I succeeded in getting it for my horde of ceremonial guards one turn, and it didn't save them, but helped them die not by as much. So yeah, overall it was reasonably positive, I would say. I'm curious to see, what they will do for other factions when they get more orders, and maybe some of the faction orders are either useless or definitely this is the one you want to do and nothing else. But in general, I guess I could say happy with it, right? Like it brings a small something. It's not, hey, that's the rule that you have by default, just by the sake of this is my army and therefore I get this thing. I get the reasonable chance of triggering it, but it's not a certainty, so you need to deal with a bit of uncertainty around it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the dosage of this felt right. Again, from an extremely limited sample, but overall I'm happy with it. But yeah, it's to be seen after a dozen more games how I feel about it. But I'm quite positive in general. Yeah.
I mean, the thing I'm quite looking forward to is seeing how things pan out with the command orders. Because the salamanders, the 4 they have, and obviously I've got a salamander army as well, it's less filthy than yours. But you've got the +1 defense, that's nice. Tricky to get, but nice. +1 speed, but you can't use it to charge. And that combined with the fact that everybody can turn all the time everywhere should make battlefields more maneuverable, which could be interesting, especially late game when you're trying to jump onto objectives and the like. The Cleansing Flame is a little fireball rule, which is either late game to pick off something that's already heavily injured, or just because you've got nothing else to do with your life. And then the Life Leech, which seems to be the easiest one to do. It's a 3+, and every success gives you Life Leech 1. So a Warlord could potentially give you Life Leech 3 on 3 dice on 3+. It's not unreasonable, and that could really help. So I can see where they're going with the idea of using the commands to make the armies feel more specific and unique. And when we look at things like the dwarves, like you say, it adds the flavour to the army without it being over or a required choice, shall we say. So throwing mastiffs, I haven't seen a dwarf army that didn't max out on throwing mastiffs since they introduced throwing mastiffs. Now it's a command order, so no longer are you having to worry about 3 dwarf regiments walking up to you and then shooting you to death with dogs. It's only going to be 1 or 2 depending on the amount of characters that are there to use that specific command order. So it makes the auto-include choices of every unit must have throwing mastiffs. It goes away, but it still keeps that idea within the army and keeps the theme there. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm due to play a game at the end of the month myself, which will be my first 4th edition game. I haven't decided what army I'm going to be using yet, but since I know my opponent will be goblins, I might take something else from the rulebook, so we're both working off 2 command orders rather than me overrunning him with something and then him using that as the excuse for why I won.
One thing I noticed, and I'm not sure how I feel about, is that if you look at the ambush rule building, you can now take hordes and large units in ambush, which I haven't tried it yet, so I can't, but anyway, I'm not sure I'd have done that, but let's see.
Funnily enough.
Yeah, it's a whole topic, right? Ambush. Sorry, go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, Ronnie mentioned this in the live stream the other night. For people who are unaware, Ambush have currently disappeared from the web store, I think, because the rules were in the rulebook. They're not currently in here, but the idea is the Ambush sets will disappear and then come back with 4th edition rules in them and doing that way. So, but I still really like Ambush as a concept, and obviously if you've played 3rd and you have the rules, then there's no reason why you can't play them in 4th anyway. You just have that. The army building changes somewhat. Your auxiliary units aren't auxiliary anymore and you can't take hordes, so but you still probably have to look at core and specialist before you do anything else. But yeah, it's still a good way of introducing people to the game, and with a smaller table a limited amount of things like champions, the ability to move and turn more maneuverable units should really be exploited. In a game of ambush, you'll see more of that manoeuvring that 4th edition is supposed to bring in, rather than two lines hitting each other and being very static.
Yeah, no, I think I was worried initially that they removed ambush or made it really hard to make happen. And that's not the case. Like, there are rules for it, right? It's just, as you mentioned, auxiliary become core, basically. I think they also removed the limitation of flyers. But let's see how that goes in the lists that people actually build. What matters to me is, can you still build a 750 points Kings of War 4th edition army and have fun with it? And my impression is that, yes, it should still work. And I think it's actually important because, again, going from 0 to 2,000 points is a lot. Going from 0 to 750 is a lot more manageable. So, yeah, I believe they should still really support that mode. And
are they more pushing people toward champions, do we think, as the starting point?
No. Ronnie's very firm on this. Champions is a game of itself, and while you can progress from champions to Kings of War, it's not what they're going to be looking at as this is your introduction to Kings of War. You can play champions quite happily and never go near Kings of War. I want to say somebody said there's a slow grow league coming this year, specifically.
I've said it,
so, yeah.
And there is.
Yeah. So the slow grow with ambush makes far more sense to introduce people to Kings of War than champions where your units play slightly differently and there are certain things that aren't in the champions rules, like height doesn't exist and things like that. So champions, it's its own little niche by itself, and it can go on being whatever it wants to be. But if you want to play Kings of War, then I think ambush is the way to go to get new players in at a low price point and a manageable starting point as well. 750 points of an ambush force is fairly easily done. I think if you were to look at a champion set, it's probably like 500 points maybe.
Yeah. And one other thing I'd just like to mention is I like that command orders are back. I like the idea of them in the previous edition, but I think some of them were just not quite right. So I'm really happy that they've obviously reviewed it and gone back, because things like if you remember, there was a command order where you could just run out of a trap. So I'm really happy to see them back, and I'm interested to see how they play. So that's really cool. Cool, guys. Right. Anything else to mention? Sorry, Clem, you were in the middle. So anything else to say about your game?
Well, about the game itself, not much. So, so Marcus won pretty decisively, right? Like, I conceded turn 4, which is not very common, but and his dice were very hot as well. Like, I'm so sorry level of hotness. So yeah, ultimately, as I said, it's still Kings of War and why we love Kings of War, with exciting new bits in it. I think I would call myself a veteran player, sounds a bit too much, but let's say veteran player, the big concern is play actual 4th edition and not play 3rd edition bits here and there. So maybe that's an episode idea, right? Like the 10 things you will get wrong if you know how to play 3rd edition when trying to play 4th edition. And it's probably not 10 and more 20, but anyway. So yeah, I'm excited to play again. I'm looking forward to it. I'm just in a bit of a pickle because I just don't know what to do with my salamanders. For example, like the non-inspiring warlord is a very challenging situation to be in. And so it feels like I need to make significant changes to my army list, and I'm not so sure what to do with them.
Can't you just give him the inspiring talisman for 30 points? Would that solve your problem?
Isn't he? I think he's a unique or like a name character. I'm not sure I can give him an item, right? I need to double check.
If he's unique, no, you can't.
Yeah.
I think it's a named guy that does this. I need to double check. Maybe I'm wrong, but that was my initial thinking on this.
Well, I mean,
no, but
which one is it?
Oh, go ahead.
Are you taking the one that lets you take ceremonial guard as core?
No, the fire elementals are core.
Okay, so
Because I have
so
only
you're
one
taking
horde of
Harath.
ceremonial guards.
Yeah.
Something like this. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was his name?
So he's unique, so you can't give him that.
Yeah.
But hey, it's one of those things.
Yeah, it is what it is. So, but what it means is I need to rethink how I build my list, right? And so, in a way, it's exciting. It's like, oh, nice, that's a new puzzle. It's a bit frustrating because it's a multi-based, full Mantic army that technically I can't play out of the door without, I would say, significant changes, right? Like a good chunk of the units that I have, like the Greater Fire Elementals, I had 2 in my list. Again, power gamer me. There's almost no way you would do that in 4th edition. Maybe it's a good thing that you can't, but it means I have a lot of units that will end up on the shelf, and I need to spend quite some time to make it work as an army. But yeah, I've also looked at my goblins. For the salamanders, I don't really know. I need to think more about it, because the way I look at it is I want to play games right now, right? Like there's some new players coming in and like, oh, I'm interested in a demo game. Do you have stuff to play demo games with me? It's like, in theory, yes. In practice, I'm not so sure. So if I wanted to give a demo tomorrow, well, I'm kind of screwed and I can't do that, which is a bit frustrating. So anyway, yeah, I've looked at my goblins as well, and there I will also probably be able to make something work with a few changes. Like my troops of mincers don't exist anymore, so I need to rebase that into regiments. And I probably also need to split my hordes into regiments to have enough core units, unless I want to paint another 2 hordes of goblins, which, again, if that's what it takes to have an army that I can play, will delay things a little bit. So yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely looking forward to playing again, and I still need to think about, okay, what is it that I will even play? Probably I'll try to make ambush lists, like 750 points lists, work, because that's what I tend to use for demos. And also, that's probably what I would look forward to for the slow grow. We haven't decided locally exactly how we do it. We haven't heard from Mantic if they have like a global slow grow campaign, or I think they will have something like this, but we haven't heard what it is. So yeah, that's kind of how I think about it at the moment. Like, is there one 2300 point army or list that I want to be playing? And what is the ambush army or faction that I want to be playing? And how do I get these on the table? So yeah. What about you guys? What are your armies? Gerry, you said you have a game scheduled by the end of the month. What are you going to play?
It's a good question. At the moment, I'm leaning towards possibly goblins. Possibly. There's a few different things I could use. I'm really liking the new Trident Realm stuff, especially the fact I've now got placoderms up the wazoo, and they have options now as well, so that no longer have I just got placoderms with spear, I've now got placoderms with massive two-handed swords to really bop people around. So possibly that. I did pick up 3 Champions boxes in December. So I got the Goblin, Trident Realm, and the Halfling boxes, which I've got armies for all of those in Kings anyway. But the fact that they've all got a champion in them that I can use. So Axel is in the Kings of War list, and Tarrant Bly is in the Halflings, and I'm fairly certain that Grunk is in there. So they're champions in all of those. So the idea of not using one of those hasn't really occurred to me yet. Like I say, because I might want to take things easy on Paul and not overwhelm him with a ton of additional commands that he doesn't have access to, it's probably more likely to be Goblin or Trident Realm. Oh no, Trident Realm they've got the full command orders there in Invasion.
Yeah,
So it's probably going to be Goblin. Yeah.
Nice. Nice. And what about you, Chris?
I've rebased about 4 or 5 heroes from my Tron Realm army, so that's pretty much good to go. But I'm doing the Zerkali, so I'm working on my 750 points of Zerkali to start with, which is very elite. It's only 4 units. As we were talking then, I've just put the Inspiring Talisman on my Beastmaster champion, so now he is inspiring. Hooray! But it's very elite. It's basically the Beastmaster. It's some Spear Wardens, those derpy Planestalkers, and a big thing of Lion Snarl Cavalry, which is probably, dear listener, going to have 2 models on and a lot of 3D printed terrain. But because I've only got 3 and I need to have a hero. Yes, it's going to be very elite. But it just to get me playing, right? And we'll go from there. And I am actually enjoying doing my Zerkali so far, but yeah, and then we'll see where we go. And Trident Realm's ready.
So wait, the Trident Realms. So you've written an updated list for 2,300 points that works in 4th edition,
buddy. I have. Yes, I have.
So,
which
so I'm
is
really the only
to
power gamer here, huh? That's what happened. Okay.
It's similar to my exactly, Clem. It's embarrassing, isn't it? But it's showing that Clem is taking all the stuff you're not allowed anymore. Yes, I mean it's basically pretty much what I was taking before, but with a few less units, few fewer units. So yeah, it seems like me and Jerry were taking perfectly fine, balanced things, and Clem, you
fluffy
you went
lists.
another direction. Yeah.
I mean, Sarah already made fun of me. She's like, "Oh, that's why you won against me. It's because you take filthy lists, and thankfully things have changed now. I'm gonna crush you." So yeah, I get it. I should go and play 40k instead. Thanks, guys.
Can I ask a very quick question? Which is, when I was looking at the new 2-player starter set, it obviously comes with multi-unit bases, and it's taken them 4 editions to lean into this. What do you think of the fact that they're changing sort of numbers of figures? So, for example, the troop of placoderms, there's 8 on a base, so they've made the models bigger and chunkier, and you don't have to worry about, oh, I can't actually fit 10 on this base anymore, they're too big. And they are the same size as the Zerkali packs of dogs, but those units only have 4 on a base. So that they're now going, we're no longer talking about a regiment of 10 or a regiment of 20 or whatever it happens to be. We're now going, well, here's our base and here's the size the miniature we want to create for that unit is. And it might be 10, it might be 6, it might be 4, but we'll play around with it.
I think it depends. If they're just giving us 6 and charging us for 10, then I don't feel great about it. But if it works out in the wash, I don't really mind, to be honest, and I can see the advantages. But it was always brilliant when you bought a box of, let's say, 10 Mantic models, and you could almost get, you could put 6 on a base instead of the full 10, and
with the Night Stalker Reapers, you could put 4 on a base, and then and it was still 2 packed together.
Yeah, exactly. It depends what they do with the pricing. So, are they just giving us less models for the same money, or is it more complicated than that? Clem?
I think it just makes sense, right? Like, to me, it sounds like the obvious thing to do, and design the model for its intended purpose, and the intended purpose is a multi-base to play Kings of War. And so in that part, it feels completely right to me. I don't really care if there are 10 models on the base or 8 or 7, as long as the base looks cool in like an actual Kings of War unit, then I'm all for it. One thing that maybe is missing, and they've done a bit of these with STL elements, is like having banners and like cool stuff like this. I guess not all units should have a banner. Like, that would look a bit weird. Like, The way I think about it is more like the big horde, that you have a big couple of hordes in your army, or maybe a hero somewhere, like the army standard banner. But yeah, the number of models per base, like officially, okay, you only get 8 placoderms for a troop. That sounds completely fine to me. If the model is cool and the resulting unit is cool, that's what matters. So yeah.
I just think it's amazing it's taken them 4 editions to get here, where they actually just go, you know what, we don't play on individual bases. Let's make units that fit a size of unit. The placoderms, I think, are slightly bigger than the salamander models. If you've not seen them, I'm just having a quick look. They're about 32 mil to eye level. You could probably get 10 on a base, just like the salamanders, but you'd be fighting to get there. But the actual unit comes on 2 sprues, so each sprue lets you make 4, and they have a musician, but they don't have a standard, and they've got both weapon types, so they have the spear or the sword. So
nice.
So it's not a reduction in the amount of stuff that makes a unit, but there is a slight reduction in model count. So a frame is a frame. It's what they can produce. But I just thought it was interesting that if you look at the rules, placoderms are a heavy infantry unit, and Zerkali are a heavy infantry unit. So in 3rd edition, we would have expected 10 models for a troop, 20 models for a regiment. But now it's 8 models for a troop for the plakies, and 4 models for a troop for the... I say troop. Troop's obviously not a troop anymore.
Right.
Well, maybe it is. Whatever the hell they call it.
No, it is. Yeah.
Oh, it is.
It
okay.
became troop.
Yeah.
But yeah,
so they've just changed it and gone, well, these are obviously bigger, so you don't need as many. So why force the issue?
I think it just frees them on the design side, right? Like you could have a troop of units, as you said, with only 4 guys on the base, and it's still a very full base because the guys are bigger. So to me, it makes sense. Arguably, you could say in the past you had normal infantry and heavy infantry and then large infantry and monstrous infantry, and that categorization depends on the size of the model and therefore the size of the base that it needs to go on to fit. So arguably you could say, hey, if you can only fit 4 models on a heavy infantry base, maybe that's not a heavy infantry model, that should be a large infantry. But who cares? It doesn't make that much of a difference. And I think what matters is that it looks cool in the end. Just for reference, my salamanders, I think my troops and regiments are pretty full, and I only have, I think, 7 models per troop. I need to check.
Yeah, they were chunky monkeys.
They
And
are
also,
pretty chunky.
if you make the base fuller than that, you can't really see the base. So you actually, although yes, there's something and of like a massive like block of troops, that looks cool. But actually, you can barely see the base. So you're actually missing out some creativity with doing kind of more models on the base than that. I think so. It's a trade-off.
Yeah, I mean it's an artistic choice as well, right? I think my goblins, I have for the hordes, so for the infantry, a bit more scenery pieces on them. Like I have, tree trunks, and looks. I think it looks cool. It also is a holding piece when you move them around. For my undead army, work in progress for the past 3 years, right? It's a design choice that the skeleton hordes, I am packing as many skeletons as I can on them. I don't even care about model count. Model count is not a thing anymore, but when I thought about this, okay, I don't even try to put 40 skeletons per horde. I try to put as many as I can, and if the end number is 60, great. So yeah, I think it's also a bit of a design idea, both from Mantic when they sculpt new kits and say, you know what, these guys are heavy infantry for the basing they use, but they're so big they can only fit 4 per troop. Or also, hey, I'm making more scenic bases, and so obviously it leaves less space for actual models. So yeah, I think it's funny, as you said, Gerry, that it took them so long to really embrace multi-basing in a way, right? But I think it's great. I love it.
That's all I needed to know.
All right, should we move on? So we said we'll move on very quickly over the Panilor because we haven't done much this month. Oops. And topic of the month, I think we've also done it pretty much, right? Like the Chris Brent basically, and discussing 4th edition at length, I think was pretty much our topic for the month. Also, I will score Chris's points. We're pressed for time at 2 hours, almost 3 hours in. It's probably time to move on to listener questions.
I'm Ronnie Renton. So much universe, so little time.
All right. Gerry, do you want to read the first question?
Yeah. Well, we have one from Screaming Adabs, which we probably covered already. What do you make of the Mantic digital news? Have you got an A1 Mini yet? I don't know what an A1 Mini is. Do you know what an A1 Mini is, Clem?
It's a printer. I think it's like the Bamboo Lab FTM, so filament printer. It's like the entry-level machine that
it's
they sell.
Magic stuff. It's all ones and zeros, digital magic. Is that what you're telling me?
No, it's the entry level from Bamboo Lab. So it's like the Apple of 3D printing. It's their entry level printer that is very good, and to the point where you can actually print models. I mean, people printed models before as well, but with the right settings, right accessories, you really get pretty nice quality level.
It's like printing a model using a filament printer rather than a resin printer. Is that what it is?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So obviously, it's not to the level of accuracy or like details that the resin printer can do, but it really is good. And for a lot of use cases, arguably you could say it's good enough. One of my friends has an A1 Mini and is tried some models for me. For Epic Warpath, I think he printed a few tanks. And if you put it next to a cast resin or a 3D printed in resin model, there's no question which one is which, right? Like you can see, yes, this is filament printed, and
there's a certain amount of stepping.
Right. Yes, and it's extremely good. Like honestly, I wouldn't mind using that for an Epic or for a vehicle model. And I think Mark also has a resin printer, but for safety reasons, chose to not use it, and instead is sticking to FDM and is printing a bunch of stuff with the A1 Mini. So yeah, I don't have one yet, but I have access to one through the friend who also has like the tiny, like the smaller nozzles, like 0.2 millimeter nozzle, where you get very, very nice results. And I myself, I haven't invested 200 or 300 euros needed for it, because I'm good enough with my resin printer, and also just asking the friends to print stuff for me whenever I need to. Maybe we can move on to the next question.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain Screaming Adabs is aware of my work, because I know he's a community member for On Tabletop as well, so I won't have one of those. What I will say is one of the community members from OTT, Ewok Kebab, printed me a 10mm Norwegian church using, I think, a Bamboo Labs. Now, it wouldn't have been the Mini, but it was a filament printer, and I've got it in front of me here, and the finish on it is absolutely superb. Now, if I look straight down on it, you can see obviously the initial or the final layers where it looks like it's been spewed out like a piping bag of icing. But when you look at things like the roof, the diagonals, the stepping on it is so minuscule that I can see miniatures being printed without the issues that you would see in older FDM printers. It's coming along great guns. I'm looking forward to seeing what Mantic do with, I think they're using some Amira Labs plastic, which is why I didn't mention I have ordered the Champions box for the Salamanders, because I want to see what their resin 3D print is like, because I have a problem with 3D printed resin, which is it's brittle, far more brittle than regular resin, and when it smashes, you may as well throw it in the bin, because gluing it back together again is a nightmare without a noticeable break on it. So I'll be interested to see what they do from a print-on-demand version screaming. Apart from that, the rest of the Mantic digital news we've covered earlier in the show. So hopefully that lets you know.
Yeah. I mean, just quickly on the print-on-demand, my understanding is they just have like professional grade printers, not what you would have at home. And there's a big question about how the process works and what resin they use and so on. But my understanding is that they would use better stuff than what you do yourself at home or what your friend that prints for you does. So yeah, I'm also curious to have it in my hands and see what it will be like.
It'll be the robustness.
Yeah.
Because I bought some 3D printed. There's a company called Mercer Miniatures. They do a game called Bane Legion and Darklands, and if you're not aware of them, they've moved from resin to STLs and various types of things a little while ago. They actually sold off the old production 3D print mold miniatures, the master miniatures that they would use to make the resin molds in-house. I bought some of those. So they are the top of the line 24,000 resolution, whatever it happens to be. So the print itself is amazing, but what is used to make the mold or to make the miniatures for those master molds is not robust, because they need to pull out all the detail, but that does not have to be handled day in, day out. So the top quality resin is not robust enough to play games with.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be a resin somewhere between home printing and high quality that should pull out as much quality as they can and hopefully be a bit more robust. But currently it'll be interesting to do what Mantic pick.
One of my local friends here who was like a 3D printing expert in the local community, like those commission and so on, he buys expensive resin and like those mixing of various kinds and so on. And the stuff that he uses is both durable and flexible. Like if you have the spear on the model, you can bend it, and you can bend it quite significantly, and it won't break. Which with my 3D printed model is absolutely not the case. Like I buy the standard stuff, and so it can be done, right? To have a resin that is more durable and less brittle than the standard stuff. And we'll see what they've done, but I hope or I trust that they will have done the smart thing and get the good quality stuff.
Yeah. Well, once I have the Salamanders Champions box in my hands, we'll talk about it in the subsequent MUP monthly then, and I'll be able to tell you how annoyed I am. Yeah, just sit there
torture them a bit and then
snapping spears on microphone, going, "Oh, this is terrible. This will never glue back together. Oh, I hate this. Why have I done it to myself? I don't know."
Sounds good. Yeah. All right. Next question. I'll leave it to you to read it. As a native speaker in a beautiful voice makes more sense.
That's very decent of you. So, Rory Quedden, I'd like to hear some thoughts on the continued success of Halo Flashpoint. What does it mean for other Mantic games, if anything, in terms of Mantic's time and resources? And are there lessons Mantic could take away and apply with other games that feel more chaotic right now? Even Kings of War 4th, to be honest. I feel like Mantic is wrestling a chunk of the community for control.
Good question. What do you think?
Well, I mean, isn't it? So, we'll break it down into manageable chunks. What do I think of the continued success of Halo Flashpoint? Fantastic. I'm not a massive Halo fan/player. I played the original, and that was it. So I'm not as invested in the IP as other people are, but I really like what they've done and how they've put it together. People may have seen me playing around on Tinternet with some of the releases. So I really like how they've gone about it. And as a gateway to opening Dead Zone up to other people, I think the Halo IP has been terrific because people can see what a good game it is. What does it mean in terms of Mantic's other games? That's a tricky one. Mantic and Ronnie have always said their work with IPs doesn't impact their other games and their own IPs. I think it would be hard for any company not to go, we have X number of sculptors or games designers and Halo is working. Let's keep those guys on that doing whatever. So it must have, unless they're hiring in additional people specifically to work on it, it must be having a bit of an impact somewhere. But we've not really noticed it so far. Maybe it is a separate team. So yeah, I have. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think yes, and to me, if I put myself in Ronnie's position, obviously you want to allocate resources to something that is successful, but on the other hand, it's good for Mantic and therefore it's good for all of their products potentially, right? Like ultimately the decision of does Mantic still want to invest resources to support Dead Zone? And I have the impression that absolutely yes, that's the case. Like I don't see any signs that they would drop Dead Zone anytime soon because they now have Halo. And so my take on this is it's a great thing that Mantic is successful with Halo. In for itself, like as you said, because it exposes more people to great games that Mantic does, like people who come into the door because they see Halo and they are curious about it, or they love Halo and so they want to see what it is, and then they get to experience the great games. I think that's a good point in itself, but also the fact that Mantic is very successful with it probably give them resources, right? So I think it's positive also for other games, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Like I don't feel like it's stealing resources away from other games. It's just it's giving more cash to Mantic, and diversifying their activities is probably a good thing because they can afford to not be that successful with a release somewhere, and like it's not a life or death situation. Versus if they do less stuff, every single release has to be successful, otherwise they can't pay wages anymore. And I think we've seen it, right? Like they've expanded the teams, they've hired new people, new experts, and probably in part because Halo brings in a lot of cash, and that has good impact for other games. That would be my take. Yeah, and the third points, I'll just go on it. I'm not sure there's much to say here, in part because I think a lot of the success of Halo comes from brand new players, and the situation right now with Fourth, I think, is not with brand new players, it's with the existing community, and so those are two different questions in a way. What do you think?
Yeah, 100% for that. The people who've come in off the back of Halo know Halo, they know the miniatures for Halo and the game. So they're looking at that going, oh, this is great, this is what I want to play, here it is. Oh, Mantic have released Space Apes. I love Space Apes, great, get in there. So there's not a butting head there. Whereas Kings of War, you've had people who've been playing for years. You've had people who came in at second edition when the old world blew up and probably are still using their same second edition / old Warhammer army and have never bought into anything Mantic have done. And now Mantic are going, here's fourth edition. We've changed the rules a bit, but we've changed list building. And all of a sudden that GW army that you've had for 15 / 20 years, it's not as viable. And, so you have a community who are set in their ways, having to deal with change. If in 8 years' time Mantic renew the Halo license and then change something, I think then you would see I don't want to say a less friendly community, but maybe a community that's more actively commenting on changes. So you don't really have that with Halo, and I don't think there's anything that Mantic could do for their own IPs that would be mirrored from the Halo releases, because they've all existed for a while. So I have Rebs, I have Veerman for Firefight, I have whatever for whatever. And if they release a new edition of the game and change things, then it may or may not have an impact on me depending on how I've previously played those armies. Whereas Halo is very contained, and they were reaching out to an audience for the Halo IP and going, here's this game, do you want to play it? And the people who wanted to play it have gone, yeah, we'll play that. And the people who don't, we're not hearing from them because they've not got invested. Whereas Kings of War is, we've got a fantasy war game, here's how we're changing it or adapting it or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, it's I think they are, like you said, Clem, they're two different points of view, and they don't have much of an overlap here. So there's nothing they can really do. As far as wresting control back from the community, I mean, good luck with that. Once a game has been published, it doesn't belong to you anymore, I think is the phrase. So the community will do with it as they will. And you'll upset some people and you'll make other people very happy, and others will be in the middle and they'll go, okay, I like this, I don't like that, but I can live with it and let's just go on. So it's just is what it is.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, should we move on to the next question?
Yes, let's. So Rufgang Kvultot,
our good friend from the Cologne area, the Kings of War Germany, Kuwalt.
If you would be granted one wish, Kings of War related, what would you choose for the following categories? For the rules of the game, for the release of the miniatures, for the community. That's an interesting one. I'll start.
Yeah.
Shall I?
Go for it.
So, for the rules of the game, I think we've already touched on this earlier. A physical version of just the army lists, something you could slip into your bag like we've had in previous, none of the other frippery. Just being able to grab that without having to take all of the additional stuff with, that would be fine for me. For the release of miniatures, slow and steady. I would rather see them do one frame every quarter and do it really well than see multiple things coming and maybe half-ass it. I don't need to see 3 armies a year or 4 armies a year or umpteen whatever releases. Now, the problem with that obviously is Mantic is a miniatures company, so they do need to have a certain amount of releases to make it worth their while. But if you think about the amount of games they have now, Epic, Firefight / Dead Zone, Kings of War and Champions, you could more or less stagger those one a month between each of the systems, and then over the course of the year you would end up with a good range of miniatures, and then they can do whatever else in between as they will. And for the community, my one wish would be, can't we all just get along or cheer that up, please? That would be my wish for the community.
Were you talking about tabletop miniatures or more generally?
well,
it's kind of a theme, right?
But both. At this point in the world, both.
That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, so I agree with you. For the rules, I think what I want is like A5 softback, all of the rules, like only all of the rules, but only the rules, like a gamer's edition, if you want, because from a very practical perspective, what do I take to? I'm going out somewhere to play a game. Well, I take this and I take my printed army list from the companion, and I can not worry about the charge on my phone or my tablet, whatever, and I can still play a game. And I think that's very valuable. So yeah, for the rules of the games, that's the main thing. And changing the rules themselves, well, I don't have much to say. I think we're just at the start of understanding what Fourth is like, and I feel like I need to play at least a couple of dozen games before I have actual things to say about it or things I want to see done differently, right? For the release of miniatures, from my perspective, so I agree with you, I'd rather have slower releases but well thought out releases. Like I don't need to be bombarded with new stuff. I want good stuff that is appealing to me. I think if I try to phrase what I've already commented earlier or in previous episodes as well, is I wish they did more generic stuff. Maybe generic is not the right term, but something that is appealing in and for itself. Like I'm still very sad I don't have a nice Forces of the Abyss cavalry model, like a brand new, hard plastic generic thing that I just want to buy 3 boxes of and do a bunch of units with them. And so I think what I want is the modern successor of the ghouls models that you mentioned earlier, which is this is the best ghouls around and it's affordable, and I just want to buy a bunch of it and have massive hordes of them. And that's what Kings of War is about, right? And that's really what I'm looking forward to, is really cool plastic kits that I just can't get enough of, and even use in other systems maybe, but really something that I just want to buy 3 boxes of and make a bunch of, and that's what would excite me a lot from the release of miniatures. So yeah.
If I very quickly then ask you a question, obviously with Firefight, they collaborated with Archon Studios and Walad Games to bring models that they'd already produced in. So there are companies out there like Archon, like Wargames Atlantic, Vitrix, who are doing spectacular plastics. So maybe, would you like to see more of that? If especially Wargames Atlantic do a lot of fantasy stuff, maybe not everything is Kings of War specific, but if they were to go, well, we'll buy in these ogres from Wargames Atlantic, so we're not having to worry about sculpting the ogres, or we'll buy in the late Roman infantry, and then we'll pay for an additional sprue that has multiple weapon types on it. Would that be worthwhile, do you think? Do you think the community would embrace more of that, where they're going, well, maybe it's not 100% Mantic, but it's allowing them to expand what they can do with the plastics?
It's a great question. I don't know. On one hand, yes, having more options is nice, but like I would almost call it official proxies, right? Or redesigning stuff into the universe. It feels like it's going a bit against the trend of we're trying to, flesh out Panithor or Warpath to be our universe and have our own IP and, nurture this and not do. We're not doing Dark Elves, we're doing Twilightkin, right? If I can say it this way.
Yeah.
So it feels like it's kind of going against this, and it looks like Mantic has been pushing very hard in the direction of, no, we're doing Panithor, not generic dwarfs or generic
it becomes
demons.
A bit of a crutch for them.
Yeah. So in that regard, it sounds a bit hard to do. On the other hand, arguably, Mantic is not a hard plastic design company, right? Like Archon Studio, they have engineers that take STLs and adjust them to put them on a sprue and make it work for injection plastic. And that's a very specific, company identity and skill. And I don't think that's what Mantic does. And so maybe there is a challenging part to it. Like what is the competitive advantage that Mantic has? And I feel like it definitely isn't making plastic, because they subcontract the manufacturing to Archon and probably a lot of the engineering to them as well. And so I think there's a very interesting question there. And you mentioned it earlier in this episode, right? Like going digital and print on demand, it's bringing back in-house some of the expertise and also be more independent on this. And so probably doing strategic partnerships with some other companies in the field makes sense. And at the same time, if I were the Mantic executive leadership team, I'd be thinking about, okay, what do we bring to the table? Why would people give us money rather than someone else? Or how do we, keep existing as a company? Where does our revenue come from? Yeah, it's an interesting question. I'm not sure I've answered your question really well, but I could see both sides of it happen. But it sounds unlikely in a way.
I mean, it might be one that we revisit with Chris in a couple of months' time and have a bit of a longer chat about it. I definitely think, even from the point of view of sculpting, Luigi does, I think, the majority of the sculpting, but even he isn't a full-time Mantic employee. I think he is still a freelance sculptor. So, yeah, the miniatures design and production point of view is something that could be an interesting topic for discussion in the not too distant future.
Yeah, I think that's a good topic of the month for later. So thanks for saying. And for the last part, for the community, well, obviously I agree with you on the let's try to behave and be nice to each other. I think for me the main wish I would want to have come to reality is stay or like have the Kings of War community still be a welcoming environment for new players. Because as we've said before the release of the new edition, and it's still true today, my main wish from 4th edition is that it brings in new players and more players. And so I wish we as a community would focus on what do we need to do to expand and bring in new friends to play games with us. And so it doesn't mean, everything is perfect and everything is great and just join and ignore the issues and just play the game. But I think in contrast, one of the worst things that I've seen is people on Fanatics being so negative, and it looks bad, right? If you're a new player and that's what you come and see, it's not very appealing. And so, yeah, my main wish is let's be welcoming to new players and let's all bring in new players, and it's beneficial for everybody, I think. Yeah. I think we can move on.
Yeah. So we have a question from Lothar Bubonicus, which is a delightful name. What is the one unit you cannot do without in your army from the new 4th edition lists? I feel like answering for you, Clem, and the unit you can't do without is something from the core selection of your army, but I'm going to answer for myself. I really like the fact that they've added a new option for the placoderms, and maybe it's just because I've been playing with so many of them in front of me recently. It's not that I can't do without it, but I really like the miniatures and I like the rules. So placoderms, they've got really high defense, and now they have a crushing weapon as well, not just phalanx. It's obviously too early to say it's going to be the definitive unit that I can't do without, and because I play so many armies, maybe something else will creep up there in the not too distant future. But from having bitched and whined and moaned at Mantic, Ronnie, Rob, and anybody else who will listen to Bias for years, Dan, I remember getting an email from Dan about something unrelated for Mantic, and he included at the bottom, by the way, plastic placoderms are coming. I know you've been waiting. And so when people at Mantic realise how much I've been missing plastic placoderms, it's really nice that when they finally arrived, that they're not just a nice kit, but they've also given me something I wasn't expecting. And I wasn't expecting an additional style of unit on the tabletop. So you can have your tar pit phalanx block, and I can also have my regiment/troops of crushing swordfish weaponry placoderms to go into the flank and absolutely mess people up like some sort of vicious moray eel of death. So currently, Lothar, I cannot do without placoderms. That may change in 6 months. You can ask me again then. But right now, plakies for the win. Clem?
Yeah, it's too early to say for me. So I'm still trying to wrap my head around what a 4th edition army list looks like, and how to play the game and so on. And I don't know, to be honest. I think it's definitely it feels like it's the comeback of the regular regiment, right? Like because you need to have enough core units, and also given everything else, like it feels like the normal regiments and troops are now a lot more viable, and I think it's great. And yeah, let's talk about it after a dozen games, and maybe I'll have more to say about it. But right now, I'd say, yeah, like the plain old regiment that you wouldn't really consider so much in third edition, I think is now a lot more important, a lot more interesting in fourth, and that's a great state to be in. Yeah.
Yeah. And I imagine quite a lot of people will be right now feverishly typing the cheapest chaff troop that you can buy armed with the crystal pendant of exploding because you can't leave combat anymore. That's probably right up there. Yeah.
Nice.
All of a sudden being able to stick somebody. I mean, we've not seen enough explosive martyred vests on squirrels and otters for the Trident Realms or what have you. So the crystal pendant, I think people are just going to start stacking that into all the lists until they remove it. But yeah. We'll let you know in 6 months, Lothar. Right.
All right, and the next and last question.
Yes. Wolfgang, what are your hobby goals for 2026 for painting, playing and events? Event-wise, I'm going to very briefly say I've nothing planned, but I am planning an Irish tournament that we should hopefully hold up on Tabletop in Coleraine up the north. We've been talking on and off about this for a year or maybe more with Tom from down south. So, yeah, as far as events go, I've none planned to go to, but I would like to hold one, which we've not done in a while. So that's that for events. Painting, if I paint anything, that'll be a Christmas miracle. So yeah, hopefully that'll happen. And playing, my long-suffering playing partner Paul, we did an awful lot of RPGs last year, and towards the end of the year we didn't really do much in the way of gaming. So we went from a game a month to a game every 2 months or more, because we were doing a lot of RPG stuff instead. So the goal for this year is to get back to tabletop miniatures every month with additional RPGs on top, sprinkled on like icing sugar. So yeah, and I mean that should be achievable from all sorts of directions, probably starting with Kings of War, but also both of us have got Epic Warpath, so I have a couple of armies. Paul's gone ham on the Vermin because he loves those. And Kings of War champions, I'll have 6 champions and their retinues come February when the Salamanders come out. So that will give us a variety that we can play amongst ourselves. And that's the sort of the idea, is when we land up in Coleraine, stick a board down for some champions, and then maybe just, pick champions units at random and go back and forth between ourselves, see how that goes.
Yeah, that sounds like a cool plan. Yeah, for events, something similar. Like I want to figure out how to have local gaming weekends or gaming days. And I've had some local players also volunteer to push this forward. So that was great news to me, because it's always exhausting when you have to be the organizer of everything all the time. I don't really have necessarily plans to travel to big events or big tournaments, but I need to look again at what's coming up. The one you're organizing sounds pretty cool, so I'll definitely keep an eye on that. I feel like the very start of an edition is the Wild West in terms of competitive play. And I guess for some people, it would be very exciting to just find the abuse and exploit that. But that's pretty far from what I enjoy. So I guess in the very short term, I'll stay away from the most competitive stuff. But let's see. On the playing side, I definitely want to, as quickly as possible, get back to having 2 playable factions, like small ambush forces, to do demos, because Yeah, I want to have the ability to welcome new players who potentially don't have models to try it out on their own. And so I definitely want to have this available. So yeah, that's kind of on the painting and the playing. And on the playing as well is I know locally, like on the tabletop gaming group locally, there are a bunch of people who are potentially interested, have existing armies, but aren't too sure. And I think I also want to make sure I get games in with these people, and both to just enjoy playing with more diversity of players, and also potentially convince these people to spend more time with Kings of War. And then, as you mentioned, also Epic Warpath is still pretty much up there in my mind and in my heart. At the moment, I think I'm almost more excited to play Epic Warpath than Kings of War. These are two different things, right? They're two very different games. So I definitely intend to play both of these. But now I'm almost done with painting my plague. Like it's a matter of a few evenings spending to put finalizing touches to the 2,000 point lists. And then I need to think about which army I do next. Probably the Enforcers, because I have them assembled already and I've been doing my demos with them. But my heart is still with the GCPS, so I'm looking forward to tackling GCPS in epic scale next, and Marauders, because they look awesome. The tiny Marauders I really, really like. I think goals for Epic and Kings of War are similar in the sense of making sure I have everything I need to do demos with whoever is interested, and then just paint and play stuff that I find cool looking. That's about it, I think. That's a lot for 26 still.
I mean, it's jam-packed right there, isn't it?
It is. And I've mentioned also, the work in the attic, in the house where my hobby space normally is, and that's almost done. Like literally yesterday, I've put the last piece of the flooring in. So I have some finishing touches to do here and there, like skirting boards and stuff like this. But that's also a very exciting, conclusion to more than a year-long project that was really impacting my hobby time, because every time now I have to unpack my stuff, set it on the living room table, and then pack it away each time, which is annoying. And so getting my hobby space again will also be a massive part of my hobby goals or hobby life in 26. So I'm very much looking forward to this. So yeah.
Fantastic. I think that's all of our questions for this month. And I think that's
it is
probably all the time we have as well for this month. We've whittled on for a long old time there, Clem.
Yes. Chris had to run a bit earlier because we were pressed for time and we went over, and then real life came knocking for him. So he had to run away at some point. But yeah, it was fun chatting with you, and I'm looking forward to the next one. And I can't wait to hear how your first game of 4th edition went. And I think you can take us out with the logo, because I tried last month and I failed horribly. So I'll leave that to you if you don't mind.
Well, that's very decent of you. It's been a lot of fun, folks. We'll be back again next month. We want to hear your thoughts on what we've been up to and your thoughts on Kings of War 4th as well. We'll see you again soon. And remember, so much universe, so little time.